appreciate your life, brother Azania. First of all, let me just appreciate you for what you do, and I actually see you as a better human, better person, better man than me, just based on your abilities, how your life is structured, man. I'm sure you got a busy deadline as well. I do as well, but I don't think I'm consistent like you. So remember, also we work in the background together. I always I'm amazed by how you organize. So just letting other people know. I know you won't brag, you won't say these things, but I recognize your effort all the time, your planning strategies, and your love for this country. So obviously, even now, you had to squeeze this time. To be honest, Kinazania, I mean, I won't do what you're doing. I don't think. Look, I love my people, but I'm not consistent. I won't be here to open these lives like you're doing. So I really appreciate what you're doing because I know I wouldn't be able to do this. I'm that person who's on Monday and Tuesday I disappear, and I'm back on Wednesday. So look, I know my strength and my weakness. So,
Very
so
encouraging.
I appreciate. I appreciate what you're doing, brother. Yeah, it's just so yeah. Look, this topic. I think we will. I'm gonna try to summarize as much as I can, but it's so broad that I will appreciate if we can have part two, and how we engage will tell if we're gonna do part two by the end of this life. So yeah, it's interesting. Look, I've made some few key points to this, but before I carry on, let me just say why this topic is very important, not just to me but to South Africans. But this topic resonates with me for something that has been bothering me for almost my half my life. And the more I grow up trying to study societies, how to organize and how to protect your own people and your own nation, this is the perfect time for me to have this topic because I've gathered enough knowledge to start the base. I believe in the nation building, and I believe that some people are gifted in the art and the knowledge and the talent of maybe shaping their own society. I'm more of like encouraging Black South Africans because in the nation building, I believe in building confidence among our people. And I think Black South Africans for many years, they've been under attack and under attack from all directions. But most of the attack has been a psychological attack. There's this mental war that is waged on my people. And I think their moral, people, there's groups, institutions, and systems in place that are trying to break the morale of my people. And remember, the morale and the psychology is the most important weapon in organizing society. It's either if we don't build a strong, mentally equipped people, our society won't survive. So it's very, very important. And I'll give you an example, Azania, before I go further. It's the reason why during the colonial expansion of the Europeans, they invested a lot in spreading religion. That's a mental war. It was important for them to win the mental psyche of people they wanted to conquer first. So I push very hard in speaking power to my people because I know how powerful that is and how necessary it is that we liberate the mentality of our people. Many South Africans today, due to the war that is waged on them, they actually think lesser of themselves. They don't have confidence. They actually think they are poor. They haven't achieved a lot. Other group of people are better than them. They must just open the gates of their country and allow everybody to come because their moral has been destroyed. And I know most patriots now are not like that. And some of them came here as wounded people, and we had to restore that dignity and build their pride. But they were wounded because they come from a place of where they were attacked, and they don't even know where these things come from. They are attacked by the whole continent, black people. They are attacked by people from overseas. In all directions, black South Africans are attacked. They are constantly told every day how lesser they are. Everything they have was built by Mzungu. They are nothing without Mzungu. And you are told by people who have got little to show today and throughout history. While my people, South Africans, there's recorded events in our history of us achieving great things that actually changed the course of history, events that are serious. We have given birth to individuals that have raised strong armies across the continent, actually, to invoke the spirit of resilience on the continent. So these things need to be embraced, and we need to say them to Black South Africans, especially the young generations. We need to speak power to our people. And this is very, very important. Now, I've made keynotes to what I will indulge in today. I'm not good, guys. I'm not good in speaking and staying on track and on topic. I'm not good. So I made a list of things that I think in my submission I'll try to tackle and invoke as well and speak about. I know most patriots are gonna agree with me, but those who don't agree, even if you are a patriot, feel free to challenge me next time when Azania opens the mic. Now the headings I made goes this way. And I called them 5 centuries of rebirth. This is me. I don't copy much from anywhere. I do research. I learn from other articles, stories, books, and perhaps even YouTube. But I don't formulate my view on what I saw somewhere, copy and paste. My views are formulated by the knowledge I gather across. So these are 5 points. These are the points I made, and I call them 5 centuries of rebirth of Black South Africans. First heading will be becoming Black South Africans. And I'm not saying I'm going to address that in particular, but when my submission, I will be speaking to all the headings I've made. Becoming Black South African, political ambitions, social vision, our collective problem and solution approach, stability and progress, leadership role in the Black world, living with the enemy, battle tactics, and this include a strike when you can inflict pain in your enemies, but let them believe they won if you cannot inflict strategic pain. And this speaks to our entire history in the past 5 centuries, by the way. It's very important, and I'll repeat this heading. Battle tactics, right? Strike when you can inflict pain on your enemies. But when you cannot inflict pain on your enemies, allow them to believe that they have won so that you can buy more time to prepare the day you're going to strike. Very, very important. And I guess this might fall under the art of war, but it's just the title I put out there as well because it speaks to the modern history of Black South Africa in the past 5 centuries. The history of Black South Africa entirely dates thousands and thousands of years, if not the birth of a cradle of human civilization and humankind. But my focus will date as far as 5 centuries because that's where the modern South Africa becomes interesting, and that's where the nation was born as a whole, right? The other heading, I'm saying observe other successful societies and failed societies. This is very important to the story of modern Black South Africans. We have to observe successful societies and failed societies, especially those that share similar history and experience with us. Standards of living, economy, education, sovereign wealth funds, and I think sovereign wealth funds, it's basically an alternative or a parallel to things like PIC, which is the pension funds. Basically, in a better term, it will be called sort of like sovereign wealth fund. The future of Black South Africa. The last one is more of the global footprint, and again the future of Black South Africa as a whole. And I'm gonna start on this point, guys. You as a Black South African, you need to understand that you are greater than what you have always been told in the past, I'll say, decades of our generation. The attacks that we have seen, especially with the birth of internet, social media, it has been attack left and right on Black South Africans. And I'm sure many of you have always wondered why. We've got an issue of people coming to our country in numbers. That's an issue that we tackled a lot. And we know what's going on. We spoke about it. We've broken it down. But today, I want you to understand that beyond the physical issues we have, the loose borders, crime, and all these things, there's a psychological war that is waged on us. It's some mental, it's like a syndicate that is organized, and it's been, there's a push on this thing to make it a living thing that is really destroying the morale of Black South Africans. Whether you are on Twitter, you see it. Whether you are on YouTube, you see it. Here on TikTok, it's obvious. Facebook, you're going to see attack of Black South Africans wherever there's a platform where these people can attack us. And these things have do numbers on our people, and we must never underestimate the power that is waged on the psyche of Black South Africans. It's very important. And most of the times you are attacked by people who share the same race with you, perhaps even the same continent with you. And this is where the confusion comes for my people. But you have to understand why. The question is, why are you under attack? Why do they target you? Why do they attack you? And we can try to tackle it in many ways. We can say it's the success of Black South Africa and our role, what we have achieved. Of course, that's the whole thing. What we have as people. It's very, very valuable to a point where many people want to have what we have. Now, let me just give a summary of the history of Black South Africa in the past 5 centuries. South Africa is made of Black South Africa, and I say Black South Africa in respect of other races, but it should just be South Africans. 5 centuries ago, as early as the 16th century, our people, our forefathers, the people who gave blood for this nation, the people who carried our genetic makeup, they were faced with invasion of a group of people perhaps they were not used to engage with. And another civilization that could sail through the oceans and perhaps the skies at some point. And these people, they were very brutal and very aggressive. They had ambitions to conquer land far away from their mother's land. And this is the period of the break period of the old South Africa and the new South Africa. Our forefathers found themselves in the corners of confusion, and at the same time dealing with a very brutal, aggressive, and ambitious enemy that had more advanced equipment. And this is at the same time, our forefathers, while they had to figure out how they're going to deal with this, there was no time. And this is where the aggressor also met the most resilient group of African people. Very, very important to mark this as a Black South African and wear it with pride. The colonizers, where they met the most resilient in Africa on the continent, was in the Black South Africa. We were the most resilient blacks. We fought, our forefathers fought until they couldn't fight anymore. This land was defended with blood and sweat, with everything. At the end of the day, the culture that had more equipment and more aggression won, but it did not come without a price. And I say this to Black South Africans, or to South Africans in general. Remember that there's a value now that is placed on this land, a value that doesn't have a price, the blood of our ancestors, which was shared defending this most valuable piece of land in Africa. And the more you understand the value of why the conqueror wanted this piece of land so bad, that he was willing to wipe us out and invest everything they had to keep the empire going, it was because our land, especially during that period 5 centuries ago, was the most valuable asset in the world. Our piece of land connected the entire globe. And those who had ambitions to set up a world order of 16th century saw it as a strategic interest to make sure that they have this piece of land by all means necessary. It was so bad that the entire Western Europe was ready to form an alliance together just to pillage us and make sure that they wipe us off our land. And the fact that we can still speak here as Black South Africans and have these conversations is a testament to the greatness of our forefathers and us, as we still stand and we are resilient as people. And perhaps some of the hate that we see on our people is the fact that we are a resilient group of people that survived through the test of time. And now there's fruit that is been nourished through the blood of our ancestors. But never forget, as a Black South African, that what you have today came at a price. Our forefathers laid their lives down. The blood was spilled on this soil, and that alone should be our currency. It should be our currency, and it should justify why we should defend and fight for this land until the last of us, because it's a very valuable piece of land. And our success as Black South Africa today is parallel to the geography and the land we find ourselves in through the spirit of our forefathers. Now, fast forward, we saw the colonial period where the nations of South Africa were fighting. The most recognized ones are the Xhosa nations, the Sotho nations, the Khwe nations, the Zulu nations, and until it goes up to the Wapedi, the Kings, the Wavenda, the Watswana. And it's just the consequences of geography for most part. The Xhosa nation, I will always give my highest respect to the Xhosa, the Khwe, because I believe that they suffered the most. and they also gave us the most political revolutionarist leaders. That's not to say other nations did not fight. Of course, we fought, all of us, we contributed differently. When it comes to political organization, I do recognize that the Xhosa nation really paid so much for the stability and the rise of Black South Africa. And I feel like today their province, it's looked down on, which we can always have that engagement. We can always solve those domestic issues in the near future, but we should pay homage and respect to our groups that paid with blood. And also the unity of the ambitions of Shaka Zulu, unifying the Nguni groups to put out the military that intimidated colonizers. That deserves command respect. And you see it even today, that unity among the people who became Zulu after Shaka Zulu is still thriving, and KZN, it's one of the provinces that we depend on for patriotism and sovereignty. So those are kind of the results that you see, the formation of Shaka Zulu, and you see today that the grouping of that formation is still resilient, the culture still exists, and that's the resilience of Black South Africans. You've got province like Limpopo, where now we've got many tribes that existed together in peace. I think Limpopo needs to do better in improving the border issue. I think it's up to us, the people of the north in Limpopo, to make sure that we are faced with one of the greatest challenge, and Limpopo must push hard on the borders. But Limpopo is one of the provinces that is mixed. You've got multiple tribes before Gauteng and all this. You always had these tribes that existed together, and I think that's a good model to show that multiple groups can exist in peace without having unalivings and all that. And then we've got the northern and west, which is dominated by the Watswana people, perhaps the most successful nation in Africa by the share commonwealth, by the tribe, the royal family. They show a leadership in how far the resources can take a nation if you can control your own resources. The platinum that has blessed that geography, it's really been seen by how the royal family is taking advantage of that and also sharing it across the province. Those are things we can celebrate. Then we've got provinces like Mpumalanga, a very natural, beautiful site to look at, and one of the most stable provinces we have in our country. They are doing well economically as well, not that bad. And one thing we have seen with Mpumalanga is the richness of coal that they have, which has played a role in the stability of the economy of that province. Mostly dominated by, I think it's the Ndeweles and the Swatis. Beautiful province, also one of the most diverse province. Then we've got a Western Cape, which I think we can say a lot about it, but we've got a mix things that needs to be resolved currently now. But it's one of the most successful province nonetheless, which is adding up to our GDPs, and then so forth. We've got Abu Free State, beautiful province that also connects us to Lesotho and is a passage to many other things that we are utilizing, like the water channels from Lesotho as well, and many other things. I can go on and on celebrating the beauty and diversity of South Africa as a whole. Now, the point is that Black South Africans, politically, so let's start politically, in the modern days, as early as 18th century, Black South Africans were already starting to organize, to shape themselves politically, to understand how the enemy moves, what kind of system has been deployed here, because this is a foreign system. We didn't know this kind of system. The institutions that were brought here, and these were basically global systems. They were funded very well, and they were backed up by a very advanced society with enough equipment to take out everybody who stood on their way. What Black South Africans have done is to assimilate the enemy, live with the enemy, and study the ways of the enemy. One of our greatest quotes that I think we should continue to follow is the quote that was made by our founding father, Urolitha Nelson Mandela. He said, live with the enemy, study the ways of the enemy, and know your enemy. And I think that such quotes are very important, especially speaking to where Black South Africa is today. Very, very important to be patient, to be resilient, to observe, to be humble, and to not exaggerate your importance and your power, and to never underestimate the power of your enemies. And I think this is the teachings our founding forefathers were trying to give us. And I think it has worked, because when you look across the continent, and you can go even into the diaspora and search other Black communities, there's no stable country more than when you compare all black countries, South Africa is the most stable black nation as a country, as a sovereign country in the world, and the most developed, the most industrial, and the most prosperous black country on earth. Perhaps even by the most powerful, especially when you factor in the stretch of our soft power. We are the most powerful. But I think these are the results of us being shaped by our founding fathers, who studied the enemy, who understood the global events, the context of history in terms of the global history, not just our isolated history as South Africa, but they had to study the entire globe and history and understand how societies were developed, how societies were maintained, and also how societies were destroyed. And if we don't know this as Black South Africa, we will lose what we have already built from generations of Black South Africans. It's not an accident that almost the entire continent was colonized, and almost each and every country has failed after the so-called independence, or after the so-called gaining independence. Yet Black South Africans stand unique in these dynamics. It's as if we were set up to fail, because if 98% of countries that were in the same in the same experience with us, in the same history with us, they didn't survive, they didn't succeed, they've got no successful story to tell, we were likely to fail as well. But we are the most recognized and the most stable and the most industrial black nation till this day. And I give that credit and success of South Africa, the modern South Africa, to Black South Africans. And I'll tell you why. When the white man, and I'm sorry to say it the way it is, during apartheid, yes, there were certain things that were gained. Yes, there's certain infrastructure that was built, but most of those things were built for 10% of the population. Why? Because the Western people don't know how, they don't have capacity, natural, to develop and build a society that can benefit the general population and the collective. They are good in thriving in creating society of segregation, society of inequality, so that minority can always capitalize and benefit from the everybody else, extract the cheap labor, make everybody work for you while you do nothing, and just control them. That's the kind of South Africa that was there. And people thought it was impossible to have a black people running a country that can actually be able to feed everyone, to a point where it's not just feeding everyone within the borders of that country. Basically, it's feeding everyone on the continent, and to an extent, everybody in the world. Now, we have our own arguments as patriots where we don't like many of these things. We believe that South Africa should benefit South Africans, rightfully so. But when you look at the capacity that was brought by Black South African leadership, from sharing our resources with everybody, whether you are Indian, whether you are black, whether you are colored, whether you are white, we done so better. We look, basically, we look like angels when you compare us to the white-led apartheid regime, because we have made a society that benefit. I'm not saying everybody is happy, but almost all people are participating, and people can eat, and the country is not burning. The white man couldn't achieve that. The white man could only feed 10% of his people. And you're going to find an African saying a success of South Africa belongs to the white man. The same white man you are embracing could only feed 10% given a chance to run a modern society and make sure that to best ability of him and his people, they can work with everyone and feed everyone. They couldn't even do that. It took Black South Africans to not bend this country after we took our so-called independence, to which most Africans bend their own countries after that. We are the true success story in Africa, and our approach has been a blueprint for everyone in Africa, that you don't need to do the jungle justice. You can literally live with the people you have sown as your enemy, because sometimes even your enemy has got something to offer. They've got something you can learn from. And I go back to quote from our four founding fathers like Mandela, who said, sometimes you have to live with your enemy, study them, study the ways of your enemy. Sometimes you might learn one or two things. And I think the success of Black South Africa as a whole, it's been a testament to that experience, that Be patient enough. Wait for your turn. And eventually things will fall in place. And this is the reason why South Africa today stand unique in the black world, to a point where we are now natural leaders of black world. We sit in the tables of geopolitics, where now there's a new order that is shaping the new world that is coming. And that table has got one black group of people, and it's black South Africans. We're right now with the only black people who are on the assignment, who are carrying the project to push the black agenda in this new world order, where the Asian man is sitting on the table, the European man is sitting on that table, the Eurasian man is sitting on that table, the Arab man is sitting on that table, the Latino man from South America is sitting on that table, and only black South Africa is there to represent the black world. And this is very important to notice and understand. This is the success of black South Africa. The success of black South Africa travels beyond the borders of South Africa. It touches every black person. And naturally, almost all black nations today, they look up to us. They depend on our leadership, at least for the coming centuries, to come ahead of our time. And I'll always keep going back to say, all these things will have been a generational plan. It's been a generational ambition, even as far as the early 18th, when black South Africans were starting to organize themselves politically. So in the 18th, 19th, that's when black South Africa was shaping the political cause that will go on to inspire the entire Africa. And we saw the birth of ANC. And also, I give credit to black Americans when it comes to that, because they played a role in educating our founding fathers of ANC, who got the political education and radicalism from black Americans. And this is not by an accident, by the way. Black South Africans experienced what we call a settlers colony, which means because of our land is the most valuable piece of land in Africa, the empire had to have South Africa by all means necessary. That means the base of settlers was created here, and the settlers came with their entire system, the ways of doing things. And when it comes to Africa, we the Africans that lived long with the colonizers and understood the knowledge, the language of conquerors, and how they have done things. We are the black people who were privileged enough. It's not a privilege, actually, if you think about it, but we were privileged enough to be exposed to the system of the colonizers due to the consequences of our geography, and we had to have a settlers colony. It came at the cost of a blood, but that meant we get to land enemy. So when black Americans who lived in the belly of the empire, they always affiliated themselves with Africa. They longed to see an Africa that works because it's their ancestral home. They looked on the continent and they said, which black group it's at the level that we are right now, that will understand slavery, that will understand colonization, that will understand the system of colonizers, the language of colonizers. They couldn't find anyone on the continent because the rest of African people, they experienced what we call extraction colony. That means colonizers were going there, making deals with their kings and selling out and getting the resources and getting the hell out of those places. So they never engaged with the enemy. They always saw an enemy from a distance, and they never really knew and understood what they were fighting. In fact, they always saw their kings selling out. So the enemy across Africa, for most part, became the next black person. Hence, tribalism still thrives. Some of the tribalism that you see in Africa stems from the fact that these people have been betraying each other and selling each other to slavery or dealing with colonizers in that nefarious ways. Whereas black South Africa, we were forced to unify our nations, because if we didn't unify and get rid of tribalism, we were going to be wiped out. So our mentality was shaped due to the nature of our experience. So it was something black Americans could easily recognize and resonate well with us. And this is where black consciousness and Pan-African ideas were born. They were born in the West through black Americans, but they were transferred across Africa through black South Africans as early as 1890 to 1912. Why do I say these things? These things assert my position when I say black South Africa is the most successful black people in Africa, to a point where even politically, we inspired all Africans to produce revolutionary leaders that will start to embark on a project of how to organize, how to shape themselves politically wise, and start to push back and understand the language of the colonizer. When you are dealing with a colonizer that comes with a system in your territories, the only way to fight that colonizer is through system. So Black South Africans were already the earliest Black people on the continent to organize systematically and start to push back. It was necessary to fight the colonizer with his own tactics and his own ways. And that's why we forged a strong alliance with Black America. Through Black South Africans now, we saw the birth of many nationalist organizations in Africa, political parties, to a point where physically many of these African leaders were educated and taught radicalism in Fort Hare, in the belly of the Xhosa nation, where the first modern Black university, political university, was established on the continent. And this is where almost 70% of African leaders were radicalized. Black South African success and influence is so deep in Africa to a point where we gave rise and knowledge and education and strategies to more than 6 African presidents. And this is just the headsmen or men who became the headsmen of their state, but to organize and become revolutionaries who fought the struggles and liberation for their people. It was taught through Black South Africans. And even these presidents, they went to inspire other presidents across the regions of Africa through the same knowledge that was shaped by Black South Africans. The struggle of Black South Africans, I often hear people saying Black South Africans got their independence later. That's not true. We are actually the first Africans to be liberated by understanding the ways of the enemy and organizing and starting a project to fight back, which was the initial project, the first project on the continent that will travel across Africa to inspire all other Africans to end up with leaders that freed them. And when they came back to stand side by side with MKs, the ANCs, during our struggle, it was a payback to the blood and the sweat of Black South Africans that already laid the foundation to free the entire Africa. And you cannot free other people if you are still in bondage. This is the reason why I tell people that Black South Africans were the first Africans to be freed, to a point where we were organizing and helping other Africans to free themselves. On paper, formally, yes, apartheid ended in 1994. But the reason why our formal independence was delayed is because South Africa being the most valuable piece of land, that's where the colonizer invested with everything. And the colonizer was not willing to let go of the most valuable piece of land of Africa, considering the fact that Cape of Good Hope was connecting the entire Asia to Europe. This was basically the entire global economy. Now, the colonizer could do away with giving up the rest of Africa because the rest of Africa did not have a strategic passage that held the global economy. So it's important to understand these things that shaped our reality. Fast forward, Black South Africans who traveled through colonialism, apartheid, they learned a lot. We had generation of leaders that were smart on average. They understood the game and they played the longest game. Hence, our struggle is called a long walk to freedom. A long walk to freedom, basically saying what we are embarking on, it's what is coming rather than what has happened in the past. And this is what the message of our founding fathers leaving us with as Black people, to say it's gonna be a long walk to freedom, but understand that the long walk is the right way to get things done. There's a saying that says easy come, easy go. If you go with the styles of the Mugabe style, where you want to solve the problems that were created over centuries in 1 decade or in a week, you are really gambling high. Those strategies really don't show the results as you might think. And this is the strategy across Africa, where people want to overdo the mistakes of that it took 2 centuries, 3 centuries to build these systems, and you think you can challenge them in a decade. You have to be patient. You have to build a resilient force. You have to educate your people. You have to grow and shape the mindset of your people, because Africans were colonized mentally. And such extreme level of colonization where you have to free your people mentally, you cannot do that in a decade. And that's why no African country stand today. Only South Africa stand. And even other African countries that resemble any sense of stability, you have to track them. they are affiliated with South Africa. Their economy is stacked, and the branches are South Africa. South Africa is basically, not just by geography, even spiritually, is holding the livelihood and the survival of modern Africa. One of the most noticeable success stories of Africa is Namibia and Botswana. Guess what? Their economy happens to be chained and locked to South Africa. And before the independence of Black South Africa, Botswana and Namibia were considered one of the most poorest countries. So what I'm saying is not by accident. Black, you cannot talk of any success story in Africa, with the exception of North Africa. I don't consider those people, maybe perhaps they've got a separate experience. But the entire Africa, apart from North, you cannot mention any success story across Africa without seeing the influence of the old South Africa through Black South Africans in terms of politics, organizing, or the modern South Africa in terms of Black South Africans expanding corporate South Africa in a form of economy. You go as far as the entire SADC, we are the largest trading partner in the export and import in the entire SADC. You go in Central Africa, you remove China and America, we are on top in terms of doing business there. Or perhaps we lead in every region of Africa as an African state that is engaged and doing business with everyone. And before 1994, you couldn't say the same. Corporate South Africa grows and expand after Black South Africans taking the government. Before that, South Africa had only a domestic economy. We couldn't grow our infrastructure across Africa. We couldn't grow our services across Africa, even the export and import, because South Africa was run by a white man, and that was a recipe for a failure. And only 10% could benefit through the strategies of a white man. Today, the entire continent of Africa is benefiting through Black South Africa. The Ethiopians are here, the Somalians are here, the Eritreans are here, even people from Djibouti, a country you've never heard of, they're here. The entire West Africa is here. You're going to find a Senegalese, you're going to find an Ivorian person, a Gambia, a Togolese, how about a Burkina Faso person? You're going to find everybody. A Sudanese is here. And all Nigeria is here. So why is everybody here? And why do everybody comes after 1994? Why didn't they show up when the white man was running this country? Because South Africa was not a success story during that time. And nobody was attracted to South Africa during that time. They had to wait until Black South Africa, which is the true success story. We know how to run a modern society. They had to wait until we took the government for them to come here to chase their dream. So we have laid the foundation, not just for South Africa. The leadership of South Africa and the story of Black South Africa even inspire the entire world. It benefits the entire world to a point where most Africans wish to live in South Africa ahead of any country on the continent, even regardless of us being attaining independence later on, formally on paper. They still flock to South Africa ahead of any country in Africa. They don't go to Egypt looking for leadership and a place to live. They don't go to Somalia or Nigeria or Ghana or Zimbabwe. They are all flocking to South Africa. And they couldn't come here when the white man was a president. Why? Because South Africa was hell on fire. It's only through Black South Africa that South Africa has got a true success story that many people even want to live here illegally. Even Europeans are here illegally. Can you imagine that? We're the only modern Black nation on earth, the only first world Black country, and a Black country that possesses and projects soft power globally to a point where the opinion of Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki, Nelson Mandela, Kgalema Motlanthe, their opinions always mattered in the geopolitical table, because Black South Africa, naturally, we have been assigned with the natural task. Our role is really to emancipate the Black people out of the position they are in. That's why the BRICS nations, when they said, we want to be inclusive and we want to be strategic, we want to include all strategic nations that we can now draw a new world order and trade with all the continent. When they came to Africa, they did not knock at anybody's door but Black South Africa. The same can be said with G20. When G20 said, we're going to become a grouping of powerful dominating countries that are asserting themselves to the global systems, when it comes to Africa, which door did they knock onto? They knocked on Black South Africa's door, because we are the leaders of the Black world. And this is a success story to Black South Africa. Now, this is more of political success story. This is more of political vision and the abilities of Black South Africa to maneuver across a global sphere, a global dynamics that are shaped by the struggles of power, the struggles of greed, the struggles of competition. Yet we stand and we are still relevant. We are still significant to a point where even great China cannot ignore us. The USA cannot ignore us. Russia cannot shape a world order without having Black South African on the table. This is us. This is the power Black South Africa has, natural. And our voice is not only for South Africa. Our voice and our strength is the fact that we speak and represent and lead all Black nations. And that's power we have. That's political. Now we are diving into the economic success of Black South Africa. Now, when we measure the economic input and gains of Black South Africa in the past 8 years alone, it outshines any Black group in the world. And our economic gains and input also outshines everybody on the continent of Africa. And there's facts to this. I'm not making these things up. I'm not sucking up things out of my behind. Now, the truth is that the most successful Black group on earth is Black America. They the most wealthy Black people, even per capita, even by standards of living, even by share of assets and education. There's no match. They don't even have a competition, but they don't have a country. They don't stand as a country. So in my conversation, when I talk about Black success in terms of a sovereign country, I will always include them. Now, the most industrial and most developed and most progressive Black country is South Africa, led by Black South Africans, as we make up about 85 to 90% of the population. If South Africa, you remove Black South Africans, South Africa will fail. South Africa won't be a success story that it is without Black South Africa. And when you factor in everybody who lives in South Africa, whether the aliens, whether Indians, whether white people, whether colored, who are South Africans, whether Black people, there's one thing that you cannot dispute. There's only two groups of people that don't have a choice but to see South Africa succeeding. The Black South Africans and our fellow colored brothers. Why? Because we don't have anywhere else to go. Now, the colonizers can always go back and claim their forefathers' land, and their lineage and genetics are there. They've got a second one. I'm not saying people must leave. I'm just saying, hey, reality is some people have got a second option here. The Indians, I don't need to say much. India we can say India is not really developed, blah, blah, but it's really a big country. They can always be welcomed. They are going to be recognized as one of their own. The aliens, as in a form of migrants, they gone homes. They don't even have to be here. So if South Africa fails, there's only two groups of people that don't have a choice, but will have to face the music. So it's at our mutual interest and benefits as a Black South African or a fellow colored brother to make sure that South Africa succeeds and continues to grow. We don't even have a choice. Now, economically, during apartheid, Black South Africans and even our fellow colored brothers, we were still having the highest middle class as compared to the fellow Africans across the continent. South Africa still had the largest Black middle class and also the largest industrialization, whether you're looking at electric production and consumery of electricity, clean water, the national infrastructure from the road networks to our harbor of entries, the ports. We always had the busiest ports, the port of Durban, the port of Western Cape, Free State, Eastern Cape. We always had those realities. Black South Africans always had the highest standards of living, even during apartheid. What we did not have is political power, perhaps even economical power, as compared to the white people. And also, systematically, we were limited in many ways. That's the struggle we had to fight for. And this is the genius of Black South Africans. Black South Africans went through the process of colonialism, which was a slightly different setup, dealing with a different ballgame. And we had apartheid. And also the reason for apartheid was because we're the only group of people in Africa that had to deal with two superpowers. We dealt with the Dutch Empire and the British Empire. Different times. Of course, at some point, the British Empire was the strongest and the Dutch Empire was the strongest. But we're the only Black people who had to face the best of what Europe had to offer at their prime. And the British Empire was even defeated by the black South African nations such as Zulus, the Xhosas, in many battles. The Dutchies as well. They had so much problems in eradicating us, the resilience that black South Africans had, to a point where they even had to stand with us to fight their own brothers from Europe. The dynamics, what was boiling in South Africa, and the fact that black South Africans survived and still stand, it's a testament of how great we are. Now, we dealt with colonialism. We had to be smart for our own survival. We had to organize, and this has shaped our reality. And every period and every time through the past 5 centuries, black South Africans have always managed to thrive and stand as an organ that will always hold their ground and defend their forefathers' land. Same thing happened during apartheid. But there's something you're going to notice. Black South Africans' views were always shaped more by geopolitics than domestic politics. I'll give you an example. The 16th June march in Soweto of school kids challenging the regime, the apartheid regime, with stones, the most powerful military of that time in Africa, armed to teeth by the likes of Israel and USA. Our young people in Soweto, Mamelodi, Soshanguve, they took stones to face that might of military compared to the cowards we see in Africa, fully grown men running away from their weak, pathetic, poor African leaders. Our young people faced the military might that was nuclear armed of apartheid. But why were they fighting them? The most important thing they were fighting was to remove Afrikaner as a language of instruction and communication. Why? Because black South Africans could foresee the future, the globe that was being shaped by the English language that was dominating the economy and the business instruction. So our views, even although they were impacted by domestic issues, they were always shaped by geopolitics, because South Africa, being the most valuable land, you couldn't divorce South Africa from geopolitics. So our forefathers were so educated that they saw the danger of allowing the regime to teach us in Afrikaner, which will be rendered irrelevant in the near future. They thought that, you know what, in order for us to not be left behind when the world is being shaped and tilted, we have to use English, or else we will be left behind. This is just one event, an example to show you the greatness of black South Africans and how black South Africans have always observed the geopolitics and shaped the reality, and we were always coming out successful. In the modern days, we have seen 10 years ago, 15 years ago, again, black South Africans observing the geopolitical event, the global event. We have saw that Russia and China will emerge as superpowers before anyone could even think of it. Then we said we are going to start the BRICS groupings, strategically so, to command the mode of interest in the near future for our own survival. And I tell black South Africans today, these are things that you should always be proud of. Always go back and study the history of your people. Study the patterns. Study history as a whole and see the events that happened. And every time black South African IQ always appear in geopolitics, we always choose the right side. Today, we are shaping the whole continent. We are shaping the entire world. Even Africans today, they are talking about BRICS. We formed BRICS. They knew nothing about BRICS. They're talking about G20. Why? Because black South Africa always shaped the global politics and the black world. We the ones who introduced black consciousness and Pan-Africanism on the continent. Today, every buffoon out there on the continent is talking about Pan-Africans. We have always shaped the continent, and you can see through the culture, whether you're looking at the media entertainment, we the ones who shaped the modern music of Africa, the first Grammy winners, right? The first Oscars winners on the continent. Miriam Makeba, she's the first African to take African music in the commercial standards, the African pop music, the African modern music. Africans before Miriam Makeba were always known as people who are doing tribal music, tribal dancing. Miriam Makeba is the first African, our sister, who was actually singing for the struggles, who used her music as instrument to spread awareness. At the same time, they recognized their talent. She shaped the modern music that you see in Africa today. the world from Miriam Makeba recognized that Africans can actually produce commercial music that can go out to sell and sell in events. You can go attend events, jazz, anywhere. You can go attend and listen to an African artist. She was the first to do that, and she's the first Grammy winner to put Africa on the map. Again, Black South Africa has always showed that the most successful group, and it's our leadership that has always inspired the continent. Again, as King Azani, I think we can do part 2 because I don't want to exhaust my listeners. I'm dishing out enough information. I think I will go for the next 15 minutes, but I need to cut it short and land at some point. But I have to reference. I have to reference this again. Very important. Black South Africans educated most African revolutionaries who became president, and mostly first black president in their respective countries. We educated most African leaders more than any African country. It's not even close. The only people who compete with us in educating other Africans who became revolutionaries, and I'm talking about political education, strategically, specifically, sorry, it's Black Americans. They also laid foundation to educate many recognized African leaders, such as even Kwame Nkrumah and many more. I don't know, I think even Patrice Lumumba. But on the continent, Black South Africans educated most African leaders. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because that strength we have in education continues even today. South Africa with Egypt, and Egypt, I think it's recent. South Africa is the only country in Africa that can produce professional engineers who have got a right and a professional practice and license to even be recognized outside Africa. We're the only country with such institutions that you can graduate an engineer who can be recognized in Saudi Arabia, in the West, in Asia. We're the only country, perhaps, I think there's one university in Egypt currently that does that as well. And that's just to show you that we have always been the pioneers of educating other Africans. Most recognized engineers, every engineer Azani that works outside Africa, and that engineer studied in Africa, especially a black engineer, I don't care which country they come from, that qualification can only come from South Africa. So we have always been the pioneers that educate other Africans. Our schools in South Africa, from primary to high school to varsity, our schools have got the most African foreigners. We lead, not even close. Why? Because we're the ones who have always educated other Africans. Even when you look at other architects from across Africa, I've got one architect I know from Kenya, studied in University of Cape Town. He had to study here. He's one of the few recognized architects. Most architects, most engineers that are in Africa and they did not study in South Africa or Egypt, they graduated from Oxford and outside. They had to do that. And this is a testament to the education capacity of South Africa, which is driven by Black South Africa. By the way, Azani, more than 85% of students in our universities are Black South Africans, and it has always been the case ever since after 1994. It's one element to show you our domination in education alone. Hence, even most projects, as you asked earlier on, Azani, and I think I will dive into that now. You asked how many projects, what kind of projects are done by South Africans across the continent. It's a lot. Most modern buildings people see across Africa, they just, because they don't know, perhaps the investors could be coming from anywhere, could be even domestic investors, but most skills are used through South Africa. If it's not South African engineers and architects, it's Indians, Pakistanis, and the Chinese. I've seen this. They don't even afford the Western engineers for most part. I've seen this myself. Most water projects, by the way, South Africans are very skillful in terms of the large-scale water project. We do city development and all that. They are pioneers across Africa. Even that project, I think they stopped it, if I'm correct, in the river, in the Congo River as well. The ones in Lesotho, and I think there's other ones in Zimbabwe as well. Some of the projects we're doing is to benefit us. Some of the projects we're doing is to just build infrastructure for other African countries, of course. The mining sector. South Africans dominate the mining sector across Africa. It's not even funny. I'm talking about from big companies and also to the skills. South Africans have been in the mining game for more than 150 years. It's on record. You can check on the internet. Our mining skills are more than 150 years, to a point where even Anglo-America recognizes this, and they are inspired by the skills that mining mining engineering of South Africa is produced. I mean, in sectors such as gold, platinum, and coal, we actually specialize to a point where our companies are thriving in places like Canada, Australia, and USA itself. Actually, one of the biggest investment by Sasol used to be in one state in America. And I mean, I think it has failed. I don't want to lie. But the strategic investment was in the energy key sector to help. I think we were helping the government of America to produce, I think, a clean energy. I forgot what kind of energy. But that's how deep and how far South African corporate, backed up by South African domestic skills, goes. As far as even ESCOM. ESCOM is found as far as West Africa, East Africa, in particular places like Nigeria and Ghana as well, helping them to have stable electricity and produce electricity. These are just noticeable South African skills and domination and success stories. I mean, mining companies such as Goldfields, Isibanye mining companies, our platinum companies. These companies are so big today that their assets are found as far as Ivory Coast. Investment, refineries. I mean, earlier on last year, we've invested around 500 million US dollars in Nigeria mining sector and in the infrastructure. I'm not even talking about the mining sector itself. We were building roads that are networking from the mining the geography of where the mine is allocated to where we're going to distribute or do the refineries. And we were the pioneers even behind the machineries, the equipment, and all that. South African companies, again, driven by domestic skills, with the investment of the government. Our government, by the way, is the pioneer behind the success story of corporate South Africa. So every time when you see South African entity working across the world, it's driven by investment through PIC or BEE for most part. They are they are driving force behind the progress of South Africa. So you look at these companies that are so advanced in the what do you call these things that are used in military, the drones. South Africa has got one of the most advanced drones in the world in the mining sector. A drone that can fly up few meters up the sky and survey the land up until 100-meter deep into the surface to see the minerals that are covered under the surface. That's really, really advanced, and many South Africans don't know. Now, what are these capabilities are used across Africa? Nigeria is one of the recognized places where for the past 2 years, South African government was mapping the resources of Nigeria because Nigerians and Nigerian government doesn't have capacity and capabilities. So we were using our advanced drone technology to help them to map their resources. Today, Nigeria, when you see Nigerian government putting the overall assets, or I mean the overall the wealth of their assets, their minerals, is because the South African government advanced that cause. We mapped their resources and we tabled down how much assets the country has and how much they have. And it goes to many African countries. Now, I'm going to be closing, Azania. I hope I covered what I wish I covered, but we'll continue. Let's talk about the wealth that has been accumulated by Black South Africans, which today Black South Africans sit on more than 400 billion of wealth, whether you factor in the private wealth or the pure assets that have been accumulated on many stocks, a noticeable stock exchange, which will be Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We are worth more. We have got assets that are more than 400 billion US dollars. That's the largest concentration of wealth by any group on the African soil, including white people. They fall short when we talk about collective wealth to Black South Africans. Black South Africans have got the leading collective wealth assets on the continent. By far, it's not even comparable. The white people, I think they are closer to us. I think their assets, when you factor the fact that they say they are worth roughly 21 to 25% of JSE, you are looking at 300 billion to 350. Now, that's a good wealth for a small population of people. You just need to take 7 million white South Africans and divide them by 350 billion assets, then they are richer than everyone else. But when you look at the general collective wealth, Black South Africans are now already the leading group. And we have accumulated most of this wealth after 1994, which is a space of 30 years to a shocking state, Azani, under the circumstance that we are under. We are told that we don't own anything. We are told that we don't own that and that. But we have accumulated the most assets and the most wealth on the African continent, to a point where, mind you, our assets are not only domestic. Through organs like PIC, which is the pension funds of Africa, of South Africa, made up of more than 80% Black South Africans, because we are the largest pension fund scheme. Most white people are in the private sector. I don't think I need to say more about that. So we dominate PIC, and PIC is the biggest asset management on the continent, worth around 154 to 175 billion US dollars. That's bigger than the economy of Kenya, by the way. And PIC is just one entity that controls 10% to 15% of the share stocks on JSE, the biggest stock exchange in Africa. Then you have to factor in the Commonwealth by the royal families, such as Ingonyama Trust, the Royal Bafokeng, and many more of our royal families, the kings and the queens of this land. You factor in the BEE and other organs that are strategically implemented to balance the sheet and make sure that the Black people are also elevated to access the economy of this country. You factor that in. I think they say BE is holding about 3% to 5% of JSE. I might not be accurate about that, but they holding a fair share. And that's a lot of money, by the way. And then you factor in the fact that now there's individual Black South Africans who have got their own direct shares or indirect shares in corporate South Africa. And then I think overall they say today we are sitting at more than at least 80% of assets accumulated on JSE. If that's been true, it's even way more than 400 billion US dollars. That means Black South Africans are filthy rich in African standards, by the way. Now, I'm not trying to paint a romantic picture to say Black South Africans don't have struggles. ANC has been a good government. No, actually, we should be far by now, removing ANC. Our credit and our success story is not for ANC. ANC has actually held our progress back. It just to show you that Black South Africans thrive under any circumstance. And I'm not painting a romantic picture. One day we might have a conversation about how much we have failed, we should be far. And I think those kind of conversations, we have them almost every day. There's a reason why there's EFF and there's stooges of EFF. They're always looking for something negative to shoot down on South Africans and belittle them. I think South Africans have had that enough. And I think it's worth to have this kind of engagement and panel where we actually recognize the achievement of Black South Africans. And I think PIC and the accumulated wealth of Black South Africans is so broad, Azania, that I will need a full panel where now we just talk about PIC. PIC is public investment corporate. It's more of like what will be equivalent to sovereign wealth in other countries, slightly different sovereign wealth. PIC basically is asset management fully owned by government, but government is a manager for the people's funds, our pension fund scheme. So the people who are working in South Africa who are going to take retirement in a form of pension funds, when you work, the government collects tax. And that money that government has been collecting in the past 120 years, promising you that when you retire, you will get your pension funds. The government has also been taking that money at 10% of 100% of pension scheme. They take 10% and risk in investing that 10% in strategic key sectors, whether domestic investment or international investment. And I can tell you, Azani, there's a lot to unpack there, and it's been nothing in most part but a success story. Now, we have experienced setbacks where our stupid government misplays and mismanage our assets, but for most part, it has been a success story. One of the most success story that is noticeable is through Naspers, which is the richest company in Africa. Naspers, about 15 years ago, they made this strategic investment. Again, Black South Africans showing you their strength and their observation in geopolitics and global dynamics. When it was unfashionable, when nobody was paying attention to China, Black South Africans took roughly, I think it was 35 million US dollars, invested in a gaming company called Tencent in China, which today is the richest tech company in China with accumulated assets that are almost 1 trillion US dollars Azania, sorry. Tencent is richer than the economy of South Africa 2 times. That one company has got assets that are almost 1 trillion. The biggest shareholder of that company is Naspers, a South African company. I think Naspers alone on Tencent, their assets have accumulated to 135 billion US dollars. On assets, Naspers has got no competition whatsoever on the continent of Africa. And those assets, they come through that investment that was made through PIC, 35 million US dollars. It's probably one of the biggest investment in history, but nobody will tell you, nobody will notice it because it was done by a black government. When you factor in the fact that they invested with 35 million US dollars, and the company today is worth almost $1 trillion, and the assets of Naspers alone are approaching 200 billion US dollars on that company, it's really a success story. And we don't talk much about these things. You factor in the fact that there's even upcoming emerging real estate owned companies such as Novair Holding, which is black owned. It was born under BEE. Novair Holdings today dominates the real estate market in places like West Africa, especially the retail market. They own lots of shopping centers and many other properties. The biggest shopping center in Accra, and I think it's called West Hill, it's owned by Novair. They also own, I think I've done the research. Let me just check if I'll find a quick things I can read right now. And I'm closing, Azani, but I feel like this is a good information that I should dish out in my closing just to flex and all that. And I want to make them more mad. So Novair, it's a black South African owned company born out of BE, 100% black. They own Lekki Novair. The mall is called Novair Lekki in Nigeria, the largest mall in Lagos, I think. This is what I'm reading on the internet. Anyone can confirm if it's true. Maybe it's outdated, I don't know. But apparently, Novair owns that mall in the lake. The probably one of the biggest, but they say the biggest. Novair Apo, Nigeria, again, it's a shopping center. Novair Gateway, Nigeria, again. This is a South African black company, by the way. Novair Central, Nigeria. These are shopping centers that are owned by Novair company in Nigeria alone. They also own the Great North Mall in Zambia. They own the Central Lusaka. It's a shopping center in Zambia. There's also noticeable shopping centers that are owned by PIC, because PIC is big also in properties, through Pareto Holding and Atterbury, and I think the other one is called Point South. These are one of the property owners, biggest probably in Africa. They go as far as owning a mall in Cyprus. It's called Nicosia. It's owned by Pareto. Pareto is owned by government, PIC. Mall of Egomi in Nicosia, again, I think this is an Eastern European country. Cyprus is Eastern Europe, almost in the Mediterranean and Middle East. They also own about 70% of that shopping center there. They also own Mall of Le Mazol. I think it's Cyprus again. These three malls I've mentioned, they are in Cyprus. They owned by Atterbury. This one is owned by Atterbury. Atterbury owned by PIC. In Serbia, they own 4 shopping centers. Atterbury own about 25% of Ushi. I can't pronounce this. They also own 50% of BEO shopping center. They own Maketa Center, Belgrade, in Serbia. IMOO Outlet Center in Serbia as well. Romania, they own a shopping center called Openville. And then locally, just to name a few noticeable shopping centers owned by PIC, you've got Mainland Park Shopping Center, you've got Cresta Shopping Center, you've got Pavilion, you've got Soshanguve Mall, you've got Westgate, you've got Tiger Valley, you've got Sandton City, you've got Four Ways Mall, you've got Balito Junction, you've got Jacaranda Shopping Center. Jacaranda, I know because I was involved there, and that's actually the time I was involved in PIC, because there our client was PIC, and quite often I'll sit with in the meetings and I'll start to know about PIC. I was told that this is our projects, our government. I was proud to actually do that government, because I knew that this is a South African government, or South African people's owned property. So all these malls I'm mentioning, they are owned by the people of South Africa, because you're going to find an idiot that listens to EFF propaganda coming here to say we don't own these things. So all these noticeable big malls such as Mainland Mall, Abu Four Ways, Sandton, Tiger, our Kingsley Shoppings, Tshwane Regional Mall, Hatfield Mall, Vangate Mall. These are all owned by PIC. Now, before a stupid idiot comes here, because you might Google these things and you might see Pareto coming up or Atterbury. The point is, PIC doesn't need to be the main character. You don't need to see PIC appearing everywhere. They don't need to say Centon is owned by PIC. They can say Centon is owned by Pareto, but Pareto 100% owned by PIC. So this is the reason why I just say it's PIC, because the parent company, the umbrella here, it's PIC. PIC is basically like the Vanguard or the BlackRock of Africa, Azania, if you know those companies that are owned by Larry Fink, with they probably the biggest assets manager in the world. So PIC is basically that. The only difference is that Vanguard and BlackRock are privately owned by this individual, whereas PIC is actually a company that belongs to the people of South Africa. So it's important for South Africans to go and make sure that when you buy in ShopRite, you actually saving South African economy. You're benefiting yourself, because the tax revenue from ShopRite goes straight to PIC, and PIC is a national treasure. The revenue from PIC is distributed to our local infrastructure, to our local projects like housing project, to our fees, to our NSFAS, subsidies when South Africans when South Africans who earn certain amount of money, they can subsidize them for houses. When you buy a car, bread, oil, these things are contributed by such organs like PIC. Very, very important to know these things. So every time you shopping center, you're not empowering a white man. You're actually plowing back to yourself. Guess where you're empowering these idiots? Is when you are going to support cheap labor through illegal aliens. It's when you go to buy a spaza shop, taking money out of our country. ShopRite, Pick n Pay, Checkers, they are owned by you as an average South African. Those are your companies. Clicks as well is owned by PIC. When a South African woman goes to buy her things in Clicks, you are empowering yourself. Clicks is owned by the pension funds. Ackermans, Pick n Pay, Sasol, Eskom. When you buy electricity on Eskom, you're not doing some whitey man favor that you don't see. This is you empowering yourself. So, Azania, let's do part 1 where I continue to break down PIC, but I really appreciate this show, brother. And I hope it was important for people, man.
MABOSSO, that was brilliant, bruh. The angle you came, I did not anticipate it, but that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I see Mr. Maseko is here. Mr. Maseko, guys, just so you know, he's the gentleman that debated with Okolo. He's coming back next Tuesday to debate against Kaiser on Cardinal Pillar number 3 of the EFF. You know, it's Maseko and Kaiser. It's gonna be a brilliant debate. So brace yourselves. On Tuesday, I'll be hosting that one as well. Maseko versus Kaiser on Cardinal Pillar number 3 of the AFF. It's going to be brilliant. MABOSSO, when you come back, can you please make a note as well and talk about the military of the continent of Africa and where South Africa stands on that? So the next one will be military, and it will also be, what do you call this thing? PIC. You're going to have a deep dive on PIC.
Azania, can you please also, when you have time, drop it on our WhatsApp so that I don't forget? At least it will be there on our timeline. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, why are you telling people that we are talking on WhatsApp now? See, you're revealing our secrets. No, it's okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate you. Okay, I'm gonna bring people up to come and engage and ask questions, depending on how many people. The time will be between 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how many people that we have. Please, let's keep it with decorum as usual. Okay, even if you don't agree with MABOSSO, what he's saying, disagree with him, but disagree with him respectfully. Let's keep the decorum. The whole point of these engagements is that we encourage people to come, even people that don't agree with us, they encourage to come. So please, let's not insult MABOSSO or any of the panelists. Basically. I'm going to start opening up for people to come and request. Big Man was one of the first one to request, to be fair to him.
MABOSSO, you're cashing out.
Don't. Please don't.
MABOSSO, 15K. You're scamming these people, MABOSSO. Why are you scamming?
For God's sake. I mean, I just talked about decorum.
These ones we can't save.
I literally just talked about decorum. I said, come up and they have decorum. Why? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I literally just spoke about decorum. You come up, have decorum, you'll get a chance to speak. Nope. Guys, I don't know what is happening, but I'm trying to accept people, but it's not accepting.
I'm in.
Who just said they're in?
I'm also here. That was
You see, on my side, you are all
Mbeje.
buffering. On my side, each and every one of you is buffering.
Oh,
It's only
siyakumva
Ukeza.
kodwa wena Yasif.
I can hear you, but you're
Ki-
buffering. No. It's like loading on my side. I can only see King J, no case, and Omaseko as people that are in. Everybody else is just buffering. But also, I had to press you
Ne.
guys 50 times. Right, okay, let's go to.
Bulldog is also here and Mbeje is also here.
Right, okay. Let's go to Marcel. I'll give you 5 minutes. Is 5 minutes okay, guys, or 3 minutes? 5 for 3 minutes.
5 is too much for people who don't love South Africa. 3 minutes is fine.
Now we just had a nice conversation. Now that we are going to have to call up.
Okay.
Now you are taking us to the street.
No. I'm saying let's keep it on the proudly South African tip because Sengenama Mabokostan from where we are.
Don't worry. If people are saying 3 minutes, some people are saying 5 minutes. I don't know what's gonna happen. Masako, go ahead. I'll give you 5 minutes.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother Azania, for the platform. Even though, I know.
Who is echoing? Everyone else is muted, right? Including myself. Try again, Masako.
Can you hear me now?
100%. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much, my brother. I hope you're good, my brother. My brother, my boss, up there. I hope you are good, my brother. Are you good?
Man, it's a happy period of our life, man. It's a happy times this side, man. So I'm good, man. Automatically, we are good, man.
Great. I love engaging with brothers. I believe we have different views. It's quite unfortunate that others use some emotional approach. When you not agreeing with them, they'll try to blackmail you to some corner that you this and that and give you some names. But then anyway, before I ask a question, I'll just point out to some brilliant presentation, my brother. And I would just advise though that when we presenting, sometimes we do respond to some of the sentiments we have seen in public, but at the same time we have to also consider that those who are listening are also learning from us. So it's quite important to consistently ensure that we cover both sides. We don't become necessarily biased. Obviously it's nature to be biased, but I think it's not fair to the listener to become too biased to such an extent whereby we avoid some of the facts. Pointing out to the earliest historical invasion, I would advise you to consider the Delagoa Bay, that is set up in 1781 in what is today known as MABOSSO. That was resulting into the invasion of the eastern part of South Africa, resulting into some generals even leaving South Africa. Guys like Zwangendaba, guys like Soshanga and many more. I was just pointing out because I saw that you started in 1652. I think that's the middle of invasion, but then it's not the beginning. And then pushing out here again in your mentioning of where Pan-Africanism is conceptualized, I think my brother, we have to deliberate into the roots of Pan-Africanism. It actually emanates in Africa, not necessarily in Europe or in North America, as you pointed out to, because you have a gentleman who authors the concept of Pan-Africanism. His name is Edward Wilmot Blyden. He publishes a book in 1887. That was followed by an article in 1893. They all conceptualized what then became Pan-Africanism. So that gentleman was in Sierra Leone. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair enough to then attribute the whole work to one particular group of people and say, no, this was conceptualized by Black Americans. And then the other thing, in terms of resistance and the formulations and the contributions in development, I don't think we have to isolate a specific group of Black people and say they are greater than others. All Black people were great. If you trace the ancient Northeast Africa, where your great thinkers like Aristotle come from, where your thinkers like Pythagoras went to learn. Aristotle, they left Greece, coming down to Northeast Africa to learn. And then if you pick in the northern part of Africa, in the southern part of Africa, so to say, you have the Libombo Pond found in the middle of South Africa and Swaziland. You have the Ishango Pond in the center of Africa. And then all these, reflect the mathematical developments. I'm picking this to show you that Africans developed together at the same time. It's not one nation that has to be given a specific credit, so to say, And then those were my comments. But then, I see my time is dilapidated. I would say, in the sense of the current state and current situation whereby neocolonialism persists in the economies, what do you think could be a sustainable solution for African countries, with the understanding that Africa is a fallen empire? Not necessarily, I know you sometimes refer to those countries struggling as, you say, shitholes or something. Yeah. What do you think could be the solution in sustainably making these countries develop in a sense whereby no country would need to depend on the other one in future? Let me leave you with that question. I see my time is dilapidated. I'll then go down. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Maseko. I'm looking forward to having you on Tuesday. I really am. You against Kaiser. Both of you are on the panel at the moment. Do you want to do a face-off quickly? Just in the Pegan and Jemehlwin, and I'm joking. MABOSSO, you can answer, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna
MABOSSO, I'm gonna be a little bit selfish and give you less time to answer. But go ahead.
Yeah, look, Maseko is not too sophisticated, I guess, because I think he did not listen to me and read the title of the day. Maseko, these things you said, you guys have been saying them for years. You always put other Africans on a pedestal at the expense of South Africans. Today, I was breaking down the truth of what happened. Not being biased, it was just a day to embrace the success, the progress, and the achievement of Black South Africans. What's wrong with that? Why, when it's a day to recognize Black South Africans who are constantly bashed every day and told how useless they are, you still want to come and invade the space? Here, the title, I said I want this space today to just target the achievement and the role of Black South Africans, especially because it's based on truth. Now, I don't know I couldn't even hear your timeline well with Mozambique. And I think you actually confused yourself as well. The point with the invention of 16 something, which I specifically said, I will concentrate on the 5th century of the rebirth of Black South Africa. It's interesting because we're the only Black people in Africa who had to deal with two superpowers of Europe as settlers colony, the Dutch Empire and the British Empire. And we're the first African to defeat the militaries of these empires. Now, I'm not here talking about Mozambicans. I don't give a shit about Mozambicans. I'm not here talking about the rest of Africa. I said I'm going to make it about Black South Africans who are constantly belittled and always told how useless they are by pathetic people from failed shitholes. And I love this word. Let me just repeat it. A shithole. Sometimes I call them shit shows. It's not a bad thing, Maseko. I think Africans need to grow a pair. They only get offended perhaps because it's true. It's really a shithole. Otherwise, why will anyone be offended with me calling these African countries shitholes? So don't tell me about Mozambicans. Mozambicans can open their panels. You can actually ask Mozambicans to congregate, and you, Maseko, you go there and tell the world of how great Mozambicans are. But perhaps why you're not doing that is because there's little next to nothing to say about Mozambique. You have to always clinch on South African panels when I'm just trying to build the morale of our people, that people like you, then the rest of lunatics who comes from EFF, and the rest of this failed continent are always trying to break. They are always trying to break the morale of my people. I mean, South Africans cannot even have a single day where they just been praised without Maseko being butthurt. I mean, our people cannot even enjoy one day. Just give me today only, Maseko. I'm only asking for today, where I say good things about South Africans. Can you just give me one day only? Jeez, man. Oh, Lord, man. I hope I've set the record straight for everybody with insignificant questions. Anyway, let's move on. I've got interesting people on the panel. Azania, you drive, man.
No, Azania, before I come, may I ask for something? I know it's not my time. You know, I have a problem with the gentleman. I don't accept the insults. My brother never insulted you. I just gave you my own question, right? I thought this is a free panel because we all. I never knew that you didn't want to engage with people who have a different opinion from yours. But then it's cool, bro. I thought we could engage. But if we can engage, it's still okay, man. You can continue with insult. Then thank you. Thank you, Azania, my brother, for the platform. Hey, wait. Hey.
I mean, guys, I'm just asking for a one normal day where Black South Africans are not bashed. Where can I just say something nice about Black South Africans, just even if it's just for 1 hour, without someone being hurt on
Sorry,
this
MABOSSO.
continent?
Sorry. I'm just back, guys. Zonaba, you're on the panel. Zonaba, can I ask you to just allocate times and just control just 5 minutes per speaker, and then MABOSSO maybe 2 minutes to respond if there's something to respond to. Maybe just for the next 2 speakers, and then I'll be back.
Who's the next speaker? Jay?
Good evening, guys. How are you? MABOSSO, I just want to give you, my brother, your flowers, but you're a guy. I'm not going to give you a flower. I'm going to give you a glass of whiskey. You're doing great things, man. And you are not a walking encyclopedia, but you are well informed. And you are a breathing encyclopedia. We celebrate you, my brother. And I think you're right. This is a jubilee for South Africa. For once in a while, we need to be positive about South Africa and share positive stories and the successes of South Africa. But I want to take it a little bit a step further for what you said about the PIC. We have something what we called a DBSA. I'm sure you know about it. And we have NDC as well. You know, when, for instance, an IDC, you know, funny thing is most people, especially South African, don't know that IDC invests in Africa as a whole, not neighboring countries. They have investment in Namibia of uranium. They have aluminium in Mozambique. They invest in Nigeria. They invest even in Burkina Faso. They invest in Ghana, Cameroon, you can think of. So this is our 4 pillars of government whereby South Africa is actually milking Africa. That is the honest truth that I can say. And I think that we are not even doing more. I think that all the minerals that are being mined in Africa, we need to mine at least 80% of them, because Africa is a nuisance. Africa, it's an albatross to South Africa. I think we deserve the fat share of the cake in Africa. I think what the government is doing with their policies going into Africa with soft power, I think we need to do more. I think the next even president that needs to come needs to take over from what Cyril is doing. I think as much as we could be bashing these people, we need to milk them to the ground. We need to take Zimbabwe. Like right now, South Africa is literally taking over Zimbabwe. And Zimbabweans are not even seeing that. They think that the Chinese are. But when you look at infrastructure and investment on a broader spectrum, South Africa is actually owning everything at the end of the day. You understand? And the likes of, Kenya, Tanzania, Angola as well. You understand? So, and Botswana for that matter. The day it will come whereby South Africa is going to determine if Africans eat or not. The way that Donald Trump is playing with the whole world to say that I can switch on the button and trade will happen or not. I think there's a time that is coming whereby South Africa will determine if Africa can trade or not. There will be a time whereby we impose tariffs on Africans because they are sleeping. You know, I like the way that they like to be pompous and not even being aware of what's happening and think that whatever that they have, it's actually they are winning and they are not. And I'll tell you the difference about South Africans, the black South African community and the rest of Africans. For instance, in Zimbabwe, you find one guy, that fat guy, that is ZANU PF fat cat. I forgot his name. He's the one that gets everything. In South Africa, we're talking about when you talk about, for instance, what is happening in Madlanga Commission corruption. We're talking about all races. You understand? Even if they are stealing, but you know what? Pedi people are benefiting. Zulu people are benefiting. Tswana people are benefiting. Shangan and everyone else. Now, when you go to Nigeria, we maybe can talk about maybe 20 people that will be benefiting from the oil. You understand? Which is different now when we're talking about the South Africa being one of the richest black nation in Africa is because of that. Africa is very greedy and they hold their people with an iron fist to say that you don't deserve to get minerals. Your only way is just to sell cassava and rice on the street and go and become nuisance to other countries, and which is good, which is good. We need to kick them out because at the end of the day, Botswana cannot function without South Africa. Zimbabwe cannot function without South Africa, and the rest of African countries, and we need to hold them to that regard. For them to eat, it has to be us, and we have to determine.
Thank you, Jay.
Let me just land on this thing. I like the fact that South Africa is opening a negotiation with Congo to invest, I think, about 120 billion US dollars to make infrastructure with their dam to produce electricity, whereby we're going to monopolize the whole entire Africa electricity. Thank you. I'll land there. Thank you, MABOSSO.
Thank you, Jay. So were you here just to confirm in terms of MABOSSO's statement? And if so, MABOSSO, do you want to add to that one?
No. Jay is my brother. He just adding, and I've learned quite some information. The DBAC, I kept seeing it appearing as well when I actually every time I do a research about PIC. Today before this live, I had to refresh because I always try to refresh. You can't just host a live out of nowhere. So I also saw it appearing in the other organ that you mentioned. I mean, that's why I said PIC. We just need to have a whole day about PIC and BE and try to appeal to educate our people, because sometimes our people are cutting themselves short. You find someone saying, I'm not going to buy in Pick and Pay, I'm going to buy at the Spaza shop. So I think that education is necessary. So I appreciate Keen and people like you should also be on the panel.
Can I submit because it's getting late? I gotta go.
No, for Takwena. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Kaiser, you can go next. I don't know between Bulldog and Ra who came in first, because I was also requesting to ask questions, but I think maybe Kaiser, you can go.
Okay, Paul,
yeah,
since you're the
after
moderator,
Kaiser.
you can't ask questions. No, I manje samba in sequence, mfethu. So, yeah, firstly, I'd like to give MABOSSO his glass of whiskey. Apparently, we can't give flowers. That was absolutely stunning, and it was actually fulfilling to hear these things uninterrupted, and where he's not limited for time. Because I remember he did a similar, there's no clock on me, by the way. He did a similar presentation on an American Live, and he left an indelible impression after that live. I think the whole live was left stunned, how he was able to break down the success of Black South Africans on that live in just 5 minutes. Now, I'm not going to ruin the part 2 by expanding, but I'll merely touch on what he has mentioned already. I think, MABOSSO, in terms of political influence, it can be seen from how the South African anthem was actually sung by 4 countries on their independence before we actually sang it, right? When you say we were free before we were actually officially free, this demonstrates it, because this is a mark of our influence, right? They didn't just decide to sing this anthem because they saw it in a dream. It was actually through our political influence, and they were actually embracing this leadership that we were providing to them. 4 countries: Namibia, Zambia, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. Do you know what it means to sing a national anthem as your anthem of independence? I think it's the only anthem that was voluntarily sung by other countries upon gaining independence. I mean, other countries outside of its country of founding, right? Except the British national anthem, right? Now, I also would like to mention Mike Nkuna is said to be the one African who owns the biggest number of malls, black, white, or otherwise, right? He owns 14 malls, Mike Nkuna, as an individual. Now, the Nigerian with the biggest number of malls has only 5, right? Just properties. Now, we are said to own nothing. Now, all those who know Mike Nkuna, he's no joke in the property sector. Now, we also go to pointing out that Miriam Makeba did not only go international, she's actually the first African to win a Grammy, right? The first African to win a Grammy is Miriam Makeba. And then the first African to win a Nobel Prize is Albert Lutul, right, who is also South African. So merely to touch on the amazing things that we've done, we know about who's this fellow? Hamilton Naki, right? Now, those who would like to doubt his contributions, I would direct you to a video where Christian Barnard actually admits that Hamilton Naki could perform liver surgery, which he himself, Christian Barnard, couldn't do. So it's quite evident that Hamilton Naki was not just a Spanner boy in that first heart transplant to be done in the world, by the way, not in Africa, right? Which was done in South Africa, and with a black man playing a prominent role in that surgery, right? Now, Nelson Mandela is the political figure with the most accolades, arguably in history, because if you look it up, it says that the only people who have more accolades than the men are actually religious figures, like Buddha, etc., and Jesus Christ, etc. That's heavy. There's literally streets named after Mandela in Europe. There's institutions of higher learning named after Mandela. So this is not only just a success by black standards, but it's universal success, right? Which is why I often say Africa would be a forgotten continent had it not been for South Africa specifically. I mean, MABOSSO, I don't know if people know, the local organizing committee of the 2010 World Cup was actually consulted by Brazil, which was gonna host next, right? And it was black men and women. They were consulted. Brazil said, "You have done so well that we want you to give us tips on how you got it right." Right? So the list is endless, MABOSSO. I wanted to limit myself to what you have already covered so I don't ruin your future submission. Thank you again.
Thanks, Kaiser. Any comment, MABOSSO?
Every time you listen, my brothers here, I know they say they're not gonna give me flowers. I don't drink whiskeys, guys. I won't mind flowers because I love you all, my brothers. I just, we have got differences. Sometimes we might have tensions, but every time we talk as South Africans, I realize how much is important that we keep it amongst each other, and we just have to learn to love each other and fight side by side. It's really the world against us, and what Kaiser has added, especially when he added the first African to win what is that prize that was won by Mandela and Desmond Tutu? What is it called? The one that
Peace.
Nobel,
yeah,
yeah.
Nobel. I forgot that point, man. It's as if almost every international accolade or any international recognition or an event that sparked a reaction global in history. In Africa, it's as if it was always started by us, engineers, the doctors, the revolutions, political affiliation globally, geopolitics,
Mabosso.
big organizations, companies. It's
The
always
only
us
one we
on
didn't
first.
the only one we didn't win is the FIFA Nobel Prize by the FIFA Peace Prize. That was won by Trump. That's the only one we didn't win first.
I mean, even
Sorry,
Trump was
Askis.
crying for Nobel Peace Prize, and South Africans just won it like it was nothing, man. Yeah, so I really appreciate what you added, Kaiser. I mean, yeah, either I did not know or I forgot about it, but I know about Desmond Tutu and Mandela. But that man you mentioned, yeah, yeah, man, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, guys, there's a lot of things I don't know. Sometimes I steal from this panel, so Kaiser, I'll be stealing that one, man. I'll be repeating it somewhere out there.
Host, can I come back next
Over
round with my
to
questions?
Yeah, it's okay. You can come
Kaiser.
back.
Have one chance. Let's go to Bulldog. You'll come back again,
Next
Kaiser.
round.
Mapelo tla khutla gape. Moroka dem.
Heaven. Khaladzi kombela uri ampe 2 minutes ati tinga judge. Yeah. Evening, guys. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Zonwaba.
Yeah, we can hear
Hey,
you. You can continue,
bampe
Bulldog.
kombela bampe 2 minutes
Khorimini
tinga
mthanga.
judge pinga.
Bakhorimini mthanga.
No, it's fine. With the remaining time, then MABOSSO can use it. It's fine.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
No
Done.
man. Oh, okay, look. My boss, I could literally listen to you for 2 hours, no interruptions, because nothing is repetitive, nothing is redundant, like nothing is thumb sucked. And everything that we see and touch in South Africa, it's courtesy of us as Black South Africans. The little contributions that we do when we wake up in the morning, people think, ah, man, we just have small jobs, but that is building the country. Those small cumulative actions by every single one of us, no matter where we are, whether or security or whether you're an engineer, this is how we built South Africa since '94, and the way you structured everything is always like each time I'm amazed. It never sounds repetitive, and so now I really wish that not just recording, but I wish that you could write these facts, especially about Black achievement, not just in the South African economy and for our industrialization, but for Africa and how we touch every single African person's life in this continent. I think Africans need to know that it is us that is feeding them. And I don't mean this in a flippant way or in a disrespectful way. Zimbabwe, their entire shelves, it's our products, it's our retail giants, it's our banks. And I even saw in Ghana, all our big four banks are there. We are laying out in our infrastructure that we've built over the. ABSA is not a pre-apartheid era entity. Yes, it's a conglomeration of them, but that entity today that was formed is what is advancing Africa's financial infrastructure, just like Standard Bank, Naspers, all those DSTV movies, the Nigerian movies, they would have never distributed that without the infrastructure of South Africa, without the companies. So, I really wish you can write a booklet on this. I really wish that even if you sell it, we will be willing to buy online or wherever else.
Sorry, Bulldog. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bulldog. I wouldn't
Mm.
interrupt you, man. I hate reading, man. I wouldn't want to write a book and assign people to and torture people to what I hate the most. I'd rather listen in audio. I'm joking, but I wouldn't write a book.
Yeah, but Yeah, but these talking points, it's not just talking points. These facts are things that we need, not just to motivate ourselves and not to look at ourselves as nothings, but to also have these things in our minds when we're talking to these kwerekweres. When we're telling them, it shouldn't be a thing of banter. These should be facts, you know. These should be things they can Google, whether on MABOSSO's website or whatever. But you really need to draft these things. Put the audio, whatever audio you've done, just put it out through AI and tell it to write an actual factual, whatever it is, 10-page thingy thing. Each and every African needs to know how Black South Africans touch their lives. It's very unfair that it is us who sacrificed our country. The Boers didn't do that for them. They didn't open up South Africa for them to come and enjoy. Well, the Boers didn't really have the vast network of infrastructure that we have today. They also will tell the Africans that no, these people have taken over, our economy. They've completely built this economy. The 2010 World Cup stadiums wouldn't have happened. The World Cups we've won, even the Rugby World Cup, just to prove a point, they won it then. They can't even claim, oh, we won. We won it, the Rugby World Cup, and we're still number one, just to prove a point. And the majority of that team is black. These are things you really, really, really need to draft down, not for our benefit, for the benefit of Africans. They need to drill it into their heads to know that we're feeding them and we're the ones advancing this continent. Yeah, I could say a lot. I thought I'd say 2 minutes. Mara Kukupela, I don't know if you can do something
ane ke
for
re ke
you
tlo go
to ask
botsa gore
you.
no jea 2 minutes no ba ne no wana 2 minutes no jea 2 minutes.
Every time people say,
And
I would just need 2 minutes, they were going to eat the whole time.
No jea 5 minutes no knows paper. Okay. Oh, sorry, host,
Sharp.
do you want to come in or do you want
yeah,
to take
Yeah,
over?
no, I'm
Because I
back.
think it's Raz time,
Yeah, I'll
and
go to Ra.
then I'll ask my question, and then maybe if you want to have an open panel, that's it. Yeah.
A host,
Yeah,
I
no, I'll
think
go to
someone
Ra
who was
first, then we'll have
moderating
open.
shouldn't get a chance to ask a question.
Ke mona, tse ding tse ke
Yeah.
mona.
Overruled case. Ra, go ahead.
Maafrika Borwa matle, dumelang. I greet you all in the name of our founding father, Holy Hlahla. And yeah, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be here with Patriots. Shout out to MABOSSO because you've really laid out what I feel has been missing, not just for us as a generation, but the future generations that are coming. We need to be able to tell our sons and our daughters to the grandchildren generation, "Hooray, bruh, we are an important people, and it's not because of fate, it's not because of chance, it's because of our character. Botho ba rona is what makes us exceptional when you look across the continent, when you look across the globe. Can we just remember for 1 second, Hore, we're the only part of this continent where slaves had to be brought in. And the reason that is because none of us were willing to sell each other out. You don't have a part of South African history where Mosotho arekisitse moXhosa to enslave us. In fact, the people who came to our continent or who came to our shores as slaves, ke batho kasheno, because of what? Because of botho ba rona. So we need to highlight botho ba rona and understand that South African exceptionalism is real, and we need to celebrate it every day because we are an exceptional people. And when I say the people of South Africa, because exactly like MABOSSO has been saying, the previous government, all they managed to do was to get us sanctioned and isolated as international pariahs. So it took Batho, Banang le Botho, to free all of us, to liberate all of us. And we stand today as the most liberated Black people on the face of the planet because of the character of who we are. And jubilation, that's all I can say. That's what I'm feeling right now, because the power of who we are, and when we remember who we are and who we've always been as the liberators of people who look like us, not just locally, but across the continent and across the globe, is so important that we need to keep celebrating it. We need to keep highlighting it. And yeah, it's disrespectful for us to be compared to batho basinang botho. So that whole thing, it sounds like a joke, mara how to maphumi kwere kungena umuntu. That's a real statement that shows or that speaks to the fact that like I said, we're the only part of the continent where slaves were not exported. No one was enslaved here. We have never been willing to agree or to cooperate with foreign cultures in order to enslave each other. That's why we have risen to the level of a nation. When you look all around us, all you have is tribespeople, tribesmen. That's why they are consumed by tribalism, because they've never risen to a nation. Rona, we managed to do that, and we need to be proud of ourselves for that. And yeah, that's why our patriotism comes from a very deep place. We need to preserve the Boto culture, because the fact that Singabantu amongst Abantu is something that needs to be preserved, and our children need to know their grandfathers are the only ones on the continent who never sold each other out. They are the only ones on the continent who had who could foresee the future and make decisions that would affect us in the most positive light. And yeah, I'm proud of us as South Africans. Shout out to you, MABOSSO, once again. And may we keep this national pride and make sure the South African exceptionalism, because we're an exceptional people, we need to not only celebrate that, but we need to stand on it and make sure we're never compared to people who are still caught up on tribalism, people who are still caught up on being tribesmen, because we are the proudest Black nation in the world. And yeah, what it means to be a nation of people is always going to come from us, as it always has. And I love that. I love this live because, yeah, from this live, I realized, or from Kwela to Amapiano, we have been the culture. We have been the face of what Black liberation looks like. And I pray, that only continues into the future. And I agree with the other panelists, the things that you have been saying, MABOSSO. These are things that need to be captured, that need to be, instead of our children watching Sarafina every June the 16th, they need to be listening to lives like this. And yeah, we will have the brightest future possible as our forefathers planned. Shout out to us.
Yo, thank you so much, Ra. Powerful submission. Get accent is secure. Zonaba, go ahead. You never think the accent from Kuro is gonna hit you right in the heart until Ra speaks. That was powerful, bruh. That was powerful. Zonaba, go ahead.
Thank you, host. So, MABOSSO,
Oh,
I think
sorry. I forgot about Just King. Just Kings is just sitting there at the top, disciplined, quiet.
no,
Just Kings, can you
No,
come in
just
after?
came after
I
Zonabo.
think buze ngikwazi
Oh, okay.
ukwehla.
Okay.
Ukhetha phela
I'll
uzophakazamisa
restart your time,
kakhulu ukuthi
Zonaba.
ngikhulume.
I'll restart your time.
I won't even take like 4
Go ahead.
minutes.
Sorry.
It's just maybe a question. MABOSSO, I think maybe you saw my comments in terms of a keyword is stability. When you look at the Black nation and you spoke about stability, how do we then make sure that it doesn't affect us? Because we've got political instability, right? And I think maybe you might have seen that maybe 2 years before the elections, we would have economical instability. How can we work around that as Black nation so that we're not fooled that this is the way to go for us, so that we vote the way that they want?
Actually, that's a good question, but a tough one. I might have unpopular views because my answer it's in both. Personally, I do see a bit of danger in the future that ANC is not gonna let go of power just like that. But I also have a belief that from looking at ANC and generally the behavior of Black South Africans and our culture, we are really more advanced than what we think. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit. We always have got this ability to organize and overcome a very difficult situation. I think ANC is gonna do whatever they can, even illegally, to preserve power. But I think eventually that common sense of Black South Africans will eventually rise. And I also see the element of some. I think ANC has also given up, but the political instability, like what you see normal, typically in failed state, I don't think. I think in South Africa will never reach there. I think what lies ahead for us is the geopolitical instability, more like global than domestic. And there, I think it's a very muddy place. It's very unpredictable, and I don't know what's going to happen. But here domestically, I think ANC eventually is going to die out, and we have to be careful of who comes in power. Personally, obviously, I will say Dudula, but I think we have some serious decisions to decide and save our country. But I don't think we'll fall into instability of where like we are fighting each other physically. I don't think that will happen.
Yeah, you know why I'm asking you this question, Mabosso, and I spoke to say I mentioned that 2 years before the elections, there will be any like economical instability. I mean, the government will always announce to say there's issues with the economy and whatsoever. So remember that, and I think a lot of people, they always push back, sorry, to say corporate, they actually they control the government, right? In a different way. So this is when the government will announce to say that we've got economic crisis and whatsoever. They will then restructure. Restructuring means that we need to retrench, and when they retrench, obviously it will always impact the Black person. So how do we make sure that that instability, it doesn't impact us? Because we can brag and speak about Black nation that we are doing very well, but 2 years before the elections, we always get impacted. I don't know from you
Yeah.
about that one.
No, look, I think it's something that I haven't put forward into analyzing and thinking deep about. I won't lie. But personally, I know there will be like ANC to lose power and be removed, or even any before any elections. There will be turmoils, as you said. But at what scale? Is it something that will disrupt our livelihood and our economy? I don't think so. I think
Yeah,
in
it
South
does.
Africa,
It does. A lot of people get retrenched because I remember
yeah.
Reba
Mm. But it's never.
there's economic crisis and all that, and then they start restructuring. So remember, it's about people putting themselves in critical positions so that any new political party that comes in will not be able to remove them from those critical positions, and based on
Yeah,
race.
I think
But it's something that can be expanded in the long run.
yeah, I think our breaking point was during apartheid in 1994. And I think the settlement that Black South Africans shown during that transition before 1994, like 1986 until 1998, perhaps, South Africa was more doomed to fail during that period. And I think that was the worst period of our time. Like the political unsettlement during that time was just at the highest peak. Yet we still found a way to stabilize our society and economy to a point where nothing collapsed. So I think there will be like a situation, but it's nothing that a country cannot survive. It's nothing that we won't be able to cope and manage. I agree with you, but I don't think it's at a scale where most people will even feel it like that. I just don't. I think it's
That's
about.
fine. I can see a lot of people that say not really, but let's see. And it's been happening for quite a while.
Thank you
That's
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much, Zona and Mabosso. Just Kings. Your 5 minutes, bro.
Okay. No, thanks, bro. So now, what I'll say to my boss, that was an incredible presentation, very incredible presentation that showed us a lot about so much, So I'd like to say that I appreciate it, and we found ourselves beaming with pride about the history of Black South Africans and what South Africans are doing currently. So what I'll say as well is that there's a lot that is said, excuse me. There's a lot that is said about South Africans and a lot of negative things, you understand? And a lot of bad narratives about South Africans, especially South African men and all of that. But to hear such things is very, very important. We need to know. I saw someone in the comments saying we are that, we are him, we are that person, we are the main man, of this thing. And I've heard so many people talk about how South Africa is punched above its weight for so many years, doing so much incredible things that you cannot even imagine. I think that this narrative is a narrative that needs to be spoken a lot more. I'm glad that you'll be doing a part 2. It's very important for South Africans to understand. The new generation, they don't understand. A lot of them probably don't know most of these things. You understand? They know a lot, but there's so much. And I'm glad that you covered different angles when it comes to these things. You covered the music, the likes of, the people that have pushed with music, the political message. From all angles, South Africa is pushed. We have touched the world in very, very. If we can really study our history as a people, we can actually see that there's so much power in us, in our genetics. We are the children of those people who did all those incredible things, and there's so much that we can still do. The morale of the South African black child needs to be raised, and such things will raise the morale, because once they take away the morale of the black person, you end up not seeing who the hell you are. What is it that you possess, what is it that you have done. And when you can look at some of the things that have been done by black South Africans, it's almost like we're everywhere. It's almost like we're at the beginning of everywhere, and we influence almost all spheres of, I don't know, politics, music, patriotism, standing up to regimes and all those type of things. The bravery of South African blacks is on another level, actually something that we cannot even comprehend. I can not even comprehend. No matter how many documentaries I watch, no matter how many movies I watch, Sarafina, all of that, is just, even when I'm, sometimes just to raise my frequencies, I watch just some of the histories of our people, from the Zulu Kingdom and to Mandela, to all of that. And it's so much, it's such a rich history, such a rich history. And I think that when we don't communicate this history, it can kind of, we're doing a disservice to the youth. They need to know these things. They need to be further documented. But when we're speaking here, you don't know how many people are listening. This is a platform that so many young people are. And I'm glad that you made such a thing, such as Anya is saying. I did not expect the angle that you took it. So, but that I wouldn't have requested today. I requested because the angle that you took. So yeah, man, that's what I'll say. I still have a little bit of time. What can I say? Appreciation to Azania. I believe that these conversations, this podium, is a very great idea, and let's use it, to revive the South African black child. Let's revive the morale of the South African black child. The South African black child needs to know who they are, so that with great power comes great responsibility. So you'll never understand the amount of power you have unless you understand the history and the paths that your heroes, that your elders, your grandfathers have took, the giants, then the Goliaths that your grandfathers have fought against. We need to know that history, and that's the only way that we can fully utilize our history and our power and our genetics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much, Justin. My boss, I'm just going to give the last speaker there 5 minutes. I'll open it up to the rest of the panel for engagements. I don't know how I'm going to control the open panel engagements, whether it's going to be 3 minutes of an interaction or feedback, or people can just hot mic and the mic is hot. You can take it. We will see how it goes. Sand or Sam
You-
Cruz.
Yeah, bon.
Hey, ngiyabonga
Kaiser,
kakhulu
mute.
bafethu. Oh, can
Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead. Go
can I
ahead,
talk
Santi.
now? Oh,
Yes.
okay, hayi. Ngithi ngiyabonga mfana. Ngiyabonga King Kafifi nawe ugologo wakho mi bamba la ibhodlela lakho. Uthanda isiminofu noma obomvu anginandaba ngizokunika. Ngiyabonga na madoda. I'm thanking you because I've been lacking this positivity with South African because we've been fighting and fighting for ourselves. And for today, I just want to thank you very much for reminding us who we are and what we are capable of. And ngizohlathuza nje kodwa ngibonga nje ukuthi njengoba sikhumbuzana ukuthi singobani, sinzalo kabani, where we come from and where we are going. Yabona, if we can have such things zenzeke some more and more, ngeke sikhohle who we are. Ngake ngalwa nomama wengane ngithi it's important for us as South Africans to tell our young kids ukuthi where we come from and where we are going and how much we have achieved. Ngibonga kakhulu bafethu. Ngizogcina la. Ngiyabonga.
I know. Siyabonga bafo, siyabonga.
Thank you so much.
Quick, Azania, I just want to quickly respond. Sorry, Kaiser, to
No problem.
Marcel.
After Mabosso, after you respond now on the mic, it's going to be a hot mic, ne? Anyone can unmute and take it, but let's just try and keep order so that I don't have to time people. At least we should all be good here on the panel.
No, thanks for that, Azania. That Maseko asked what will be the solution for sustainability of Africa in the near future. And unfortunately, I did not have enough time to. I forgot to respond to that when he was still here. Look, I think I've given an answer to this before, but I'm gonna repeat it. There's no hope for Africa. There's no Africa is not one entity organ that speaks in one voice and magically Africa is just gonna transform one day as a whole. There's no hope for Africa. Most African countries are not gonna make it. They're gonna continue to be subordinate states that are giving other powerful states resources. They're gonna continue to be deindustrialized deliberately so, because the people inside those countries don't have capacity to do that, and super powerful countries will also create a shield to make sure that those countries don't industrialize. That's the future of Africa. When the new order comes, which is led by USA, Russia, China, Africa is going to be divided in 3 segments. There will be a grouping that will prioritize American tech industries and services, and one that will prioritize China, and one that will prioritize Russia. But Africa is going to continue to be the place of clowns and beaches to extract resources and go. Now, there will be exceptional African countries. Like South Africa is already a middle power with Egypt. They've already made their global footprint. If things go according to the plan, South Africa continues to affiliate itself with superpowers and cut a better deal. Then South Africa will continue to have a domestic base in terms of projects to progress, technology, education, growth of middle class income, production, all these things. But South Africa wouldn't transform and become like China by tomorrow or a superpower. It will maintain its position of being a middle power, but the rest of Africa continues to be a shithole. Now, the truth is Africa will be better than yesterday. Of course, that's natural. Every place is going to keep getting better because the entire world is progressing. But this idea that one day Africa is going to prosper and become a place of booming technology and advancement, not in our lifetime. Get over yourself. AI is taking over. China, America, Russia, they're going to lead the new world order, and they're not going to have Africa on that table. They might squeeze South Africa and Egypt somewhere, but we will also be limited in power. Just accept it. Africans bend over, accept China, America, and Russia to come and do their job as they've always done until the day you decide to do something in your particular individual countries. Other than that, there's no chance. I'm telling you, that's just the reality of it.
Okay, can I come in, guys? Sorry. Jubilation. We continue with the celebration. I'm having 3 questions for you, Mabosso, but before I go to my questions, Actually, I'll just line them, but they are all connected. But before I go to my question, I just wanna, try and submit on what Zonabo was saying about companies closing down and the instability and stuff like that. And I think I agree with you. I don't think that will go to that stage of civil unrest and things like that because of votes and stuff like that. And again, about companies, guys, we have to understand that evolution will always leave certain people and ideas and companies behind. The reason why Goodyear closes down is because they could not keep up with the technology that Dunlop and Continental is putting forth. The likes of most of you guys that are driving the latest car, you know that you can actually, a nail can punch your tire, and you take out the nail and you pump it again and it's fixed because of that glue that is inside. So Goodyear could not keep up with the technologies and pricing and sourcing materials and things like that. The likes of DSTV, they went down because Netflix was offering something better, BlackBerry. The rest is history. So we always have to understand that companies will close down, especially companies that are 100-year-old, 50-year-old, because they think that they are irreplaceable. And now they are the young Gen Zs that are coming with new innovative ideas that will bring down a massive corporation down. You understand? So it's part of life. It's part of evolution. Today what we're seeing as an X6, what we're seeing as a Rolls Royce, it will be replaced one day. Everything will, even Santen, in maybe 100 years to come, waterfall in Santen will not be, in Cape Town will not be what we see them today. Maybe it might be in Limpopo or Northwest or the Eastern Cape, where you find our next Cape Town. And that's life. That's how things will go. But my question, Mabosso, is what angle do you think that South Africa should take to get more influence in Africa, in more of getting their foot, in simpler terms, to conquer them, economically? And my second question, I'm sure maybe you'll remember, but you can ask me if you forgot. The next one will be, what measures do you think that we can use to filter down the wealth that we have? We agree that South Africa is prosperous and it's going forth, What do you think what measures we can use to filter down whatever the profit that South Africa is gaining, down to the people on the ground? And lastly will be, what mechanism do you think that we can use in terms of rebuilding the brand SA, so that people can know, so that people on the ground can understand that their country is wealthy, there's opportunities, that South Africa is not only ridden with crime and hate and xenos and whatever, that South Africa is actually a beautiful country, that when you see a lot of people coming to South Africa, actually they come in to something beautiful, so that our people will not just sit at home, some of them be demoralized and say that, we are fine, you understand. There's no jobs, South Africa is going down, with the narratives of AfriForum and the likes and like that. What do you think that we can do? Just to pick your brain.
Yeah, these are well sounded questions actually. You said, how can we filter down profit in South Africa, and like make sure that whatever the national revenues that we extract, whether in a form of South African entities that are led by government, which I think those are better, or in the private sectors and other form of revenues, and how can this benefit the average person? I think so far there was a point actually ANC was trying to be had a good vision, and there was a form of excellency, the early ANC of the end of Mandela and the early of the period of Thabo Mbeki. Basically, we were going in the right direction, and I think we've allowed too much internal corruption of ANC, internal competition of ANC, leaders that are caught up in their own squabbles and prioritizing their own personal gains and squabbles within the organizations, but not leading the people. I think South Africa, we've got a better model. We just need to remove ANC and put political parties that will have checks and balances and that are patriot. But for most part, King J, we must have a rewarding mechanism and system in place. A system that rewards people when they do good things and a system that rewards people when they do bad things accordingly. So if you are found looting, we must be rewarded with prison if possible, unaliving, especially if you're serving in the public. In China, they do have got that system, and we can see that that has benefited China and transformed China. Perhaps China is where it is because the leadership is willing to unalive themselves if they are stealing. Now, in South Africa, we don't have that reward system at all. In South Africa, you commit theft, especially stealing from the public funds, you get away with it. So even if we change ANC, but we still put new government, they're going to lead us well first term, second terms, third terms, they back to what ANC was doing because the system will still be the same. So we need to have a rewarding system that punishes people when they are stealing, especially from the public. And the most offensive thing in a country must be the officials who are supposed to serve the people. That must be the highest crime in the land by the law. And I think in China they actually have that. The officials in China face the highest law of the land more than even a murderer or a rapist if they steal from the public. They actually put themselves at the highest standards in a country more than anyone else. So until we have got such leaders that are willing to sacrifice themselves for betterness of the everybody, we won't see the results we want. So I think first we remove ANC, which you might not like, Jay, because you are a stooge of ANC. We remove ANC, and then we also put mechanisms in place that rule over our politicians. These fuckers need to be unalived if possible when they steal from the people. There's nothing that hurts a nation more than having leaders that are going to loot from the people. But if we can put these people in checked, we will progress fast because already South Africa has got policies and constitutions that actually work for the people. And they have shown evidence in the past that if they can reach their potential, these systems will benefit us. The other question you said, how can we penetrate Africa and influence across Africa? For me, Africa is it's a place that it's a very difficult place. I don't have hope for Africa. But I think what we can do as South Africa is that we need to be more aggressive. I think we have been having a soft government that is trying to buy influence by sabotaging the state itself, by destroying the core of the state. We don't need to harbor the responsibilities of Africa in order for us to get influence from them. In fact, we need to starve them until these people need us already. We are competing with China, of course, Abu Russia, Abu India, Abu USA, and all these other well-established countries. Rather, we not take a deal then. If they want to be influenced by China, if they want to be under America, then screw them. But we must stop stretching ourselves in order to buy influence from these people because it's only destroying our own, it's decaying the country. For example, this ANC has been harboring a lot of responsibilities across the continent. One of it is including migration of people into South Africa just so that they can buy their influence for whatever the shenanigans they're up to. What in return, what does this does is that it is destroying the moral of South Africa from within. So eventually, this approach destroys the most stable and the strongest black nation on earth, just continuing to weaken even any chance of any black people from surviving, because South Africa is holding a passage through the survival of black people as a whole in this modern world we live in. So it's important to protect South Africa and make sure that you strengthen South Africa. You don't allow hooligans to come here. That's the other thing. So I don't know how ANC is going to keep influencing Africa, willing to destroy South Africa. They need to be more aggressive and they must be willing to lose that influence if necessary just to protect South Africa. Right now, ANC is willing to sell South Africa out just to have influence across Africa, and that doesn't work at all. It's not sustainable. And how can we rebrand? Actually, that's a very, very good thing. And you will be shocked, Jay Bobbies. Few weeks ago, I was actually talking about this thing of rebranding. And I actually believe that the strength of South Africa as a whole, but Black South Africa in particular, we actually good in branding ourselves, and we're not even aware of how good we are in market. If you look at East Africa, you know that those people are known for running spaza shops and excelling in that informal sector, especially the Ethiopian Somalis. They've got that culture. I think it's driven by the fact that they've been trading in the Red Sea for the longest time. So they've developed a way to have a culture of just trading, even if it's small scale. It's their culture. You know that they excel in it. Now, when you're dealing with West Africans, they also excel in small scale businesses, but mostly the saloons, maybe few excelling in where they sell food, restaurants, blah blah. They also excel in scamming and selling each other, and that's their culture. They go with it. I think as South Africans, we are very good with brand, and we don't actually recognize how good we are. You know, the most trusted brand in Africa is brand South Africa. And beyond brand South Africa, for example, Orlando Pirates is the most trusted brand of football across Africa. Batu is the most trusted sneaker brand of Africa alone. Amaxhosa is the most luxurious African most trusted brand. Abu Sasol, the most trusted energy brand. Eskom, most trusted electricity producer. ShopRite, the most trusted brand in terms of retail and supermarket. MTN, the most trusted brand in terms of mobile services. The list is endless. Even how we brand our entertainment industry. People look up to us for rebrand. The movie industry of South Africa, how we have branded it. Everything we touch in terms of brand has got no doubt. Brand South Africa. Even the tourism concept in Africa is branded by South Africa. Indawa. Even the mining brand. That's what we excel in. And that's why the strongest element of South African economy is the service economy. And services have to do with markets and rebrand. That's exactly what we must focus on. I think in Africa already we are the most trusted brand. What we need now is the strong patriotic government, but at the same time, a government that understands maneuvering beyond the borders of South Africa. Because sometimes, with the tone of our patriotism, I feel like we tend to be short-sighted where we want to divorce ourselves from geopolitics and doing having influence beyond our borders. That is actually very, very good. What we must do is to protect South Africa, which ANC hasn't been doing. And now we're just so angry and so tired that we want to shut down everything and close up ourselves. It's not going to benefit us. What we need is a patriotic government that understands business beyond the borders of South Africa. Very aggressive approach. If you look at the government of America, they are very, very aggressive. Government of China, not even a question. They are very, very aggressive. China has managed to expand their interests, their businesses across the world without absorbing influx of people to China. That means somewhere, somehow, the leadership of China is capable of passing aggressive influence, making sure that they get what they want without absorbing responsibilities of other nations. I think China has got the best model in terms of how we can shape our international policy and have influence beyond our borders without impacting the living standard of South Africans domestically. Yeah, but I think.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna give it to Kaiser, but if
Yes,
I'm
yes,
done.
I'm not on yam.
Casey. Are you echoing?
please,
Yeah, ngiyekhuwa
Yeah,
kanjani
okay.
bafethu?
no,
No, I'm
akuna
joking.
hey. So excuse me. What
Oh, so I wanted to say there's something critical that is intrinsically linked to this topic we are having, and the idea that all these achievements are because of
Critical
white
and
people.
intrinsical. How's what?
Ntwana ngcono uvele ungiyeke ntwana yami ukuthi I'm misunderstood ngoba manje uyangithola off accent mara mfethu accent is not working on my
Bhena,
side.
Kaiser, asibiza ukubhena. Sicela ukubiza ubhena ozokwazi ukutranslate.
You know, I think it's very important to address this, you know, because we can list all these things and then the elephant in the room is that those who don't know any better will say we've achieved all this because of YT, you know. Now, I think I'm struggling to shape this as a question, but I know MABOSSO will know what to do with it. Now, what people need to know is that actually we achieved what we have not because of white people, but in spite of white people, right? Because for the longest time they were standing against us. You know, everything that we were able to achieve, we achieved it when they were trying to actually stop us from achieving it. You know, and it's truly an injustice for people who are actually trying to make us fail to later be given credit for our success. Like it's really, really the definition of injustice, you know. And then, for example, MABOSSO, firstly, the founding of the new South Africa was against the will of the white supremacist superstructure at the time, and not just locally, but globally. But through our ability to maneuver, we were able to push them into a corner where they actually had to admit a better deal, which was pioneered again by ourselves. You know, for those who actually read Long Walk to Freedom, there's a point where Mandela was actually negotiating with white people, and they couldn't believe that these were actually his own abilities. They thought he was trained by Russia, the Soviet Union, or wherever, because he was so exceptional that he was running circles around a whole delegation of white men, right? He was running circles around them. And you will see this in the interview with Ted Koppel, in case you doubt that what he's saying in Long Walk to Freedom is real. Watch his interview in America, where he's interviewed by Ted Koppel. And you will see how that interview was set up to trip him up and make him look foolish and just to confuse him, right? But he was so exceptional that it reminded me of that passage in the book where he was negotiating with a delegation of white men all by himself. And he was running circles around them so that even they couldn't believe what they were dealing with, you know? And Mandela himself mentioned that he was inspired by those who were exceptional before him. During his Rivonia trial, he mentioned how he was inspired by King Shaka Zulu, Yinsa, etc. That is why I'm becoming emboldened to actually say we are the greatest to ever do it, black or white. Because I feel like to say the greatest blacks, it actually downplays what we have done. Because you look at King Shaka Zulu and you compare him to Napoleon or Alexander the Great, right? Now, in order to measure his capacity, you must look at it, for example, from a purchasing power parity point of view, analogically, to say, what tools did Shaka Zulu have at his disposal? And if he had the same tools as Alexandra and access to the same technology, basically, and then you look at his intellectual capacity and what he was able to do with the limited tools he had at his disposal and inferior technology, what would he have done actually if he had the same tools that these Alexandra and etc. had? You know, we have to look at it that way. Then you will start to understand that actually we are the greatest to ever do it. The superpowers we had to push against MABOSSO, the dynamics we had to balance in order to get this country right. You know, guys, contrary to what people say that we're just given a country, they did everything to sabotage this transformation. People don't know this. For example, the plan was that rather than ending apartheid, let's create homelands, because these people are going to give us a problem if they become one majority, right? Let's create homelands so that they become tribal minorities rather than one big majority. We were able to firstly see past that and also maneuver past that. if South Africa took the shape that apartheid wanted with their reformed version of apartheid, Transkei will be an independent country. Bophuthatswana will be an independent country. Venda would be an independent country. And also, what is this other territory? KZN will be an independent country. But we actually
Qwaqwa.
pushed against them.
Say, Kaiser, don't forget Qwaqwa.
Yeah, and also Kwakwa, thank you. Would have become an independent country according to the master plan of reformed apartheid, right? We were able to defeat that. The shape of South Africa as we know it right now is actually black leaders maneuvering against the white master plan of a reformed apartheid, right? And also the minority rights were not secured, right? They wanted a minority rights. And by the way, Orania is not actually the form of what white conservatives or white right-wingers wanted. They actually went to Mandela, the one who is called a sellout today. They went to Mandela, they said they want a Volksstaat, right? And I think Bophuthatswana was what the portion they wanted. And Mandela, this is how he maneuvered them. He opened a map, he said, point to a part in the map that you want to have your Volksstaat. Their argument was that all the other tribes of South Africa have their own homeland. The Afrikaners, as the tribe of Africa, of South Africa, they don't have their own homeland. Mandela said, okay, fine. If you argue on those merits, point to a part of the map where you want that homeland. And then but there's only one catch. Listen to this, MABOSSO. He said there's only one catch. You can have your homeland, but in order to make it similar to the black homelands, black people must also be allowed in that homeland. They didn't want that and they gave up on the plan. Now, look at how many things that the black people had to balance, which white people were trying to maneuver against. And for only later to be told that we are what we are today because of white people, when we actually were able to achieve this against their will for the most part. And they actually, even insofar as they finally agreed to cooperate and work with us, it was because of our vision and leadership. They had to submit to better sense that was brought about by black people. Please deal with that, MABOSSO, to say it's incorrect basically to say we are what we are because of white people, but we are actually what we are in spite of what they tried to do to us, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good point,
MABOSSO,
Kaiser. And
sorry, MABOSSO, just before you go in, Kaiser, you've just given birth to an idea in my head. I think we need to actually have a podium session where we kind of put the decision making of the then leaders and Abo Nelson Mandela under the microscope in the podium and figure out what exactly informed their decision. And the example you've just made now of white people wanting their own Volksstaat and how we approach that. Because maxesha amaninzi ne kuba khona criticism leveled kubo level against them to say they sold out, etc., etc. And I feel like we don't understand the psyche behind the decisions that were taken, kissing the frogs that we needed to kiss in order to stabilize our country. And
Well
yeah, we
said,
need you.
kissing frogs.
We need you.
yeah,
we need that
Before
session in the podium.
MABOSSO finally comes in, I wanted to say this particular point that you are talking to right now. Now, a lot of times, Mandela is called a sellout. And I often say, if you are not satisfied with that man as a leader, you'll never be satisfied with anybody.
Kaiser, don't go too deep into it because I want you on the podium. Don't go too deep. You can speak, but just
I
be
wanted
mindful.
to say,
Just dip your toes
yeah.
in, eh? Dip your toes in.
Yeah, I won't go too far. I wanted to say to more especially MABOSSO, who is playing leadership roles, whether in Dudula or in his own professional life. Guys, in order to appreciate Mandela as a leader, be a leader first. You will have a new appreciation of what he had to deal with in order to get this right. Right? Umnitama actually started off by calling him a sellout. He was one of the born agains. Once he started to lead and had to deal with human beings and realized, Tuguti, no, this is what Mandela actually had to deal with. He came back and said, I'm changing my opinion. He wasn't a sellout, you know?
Kaiser, this is a topic that is touchy to my heart, and because my role model in my life is Mandela. He inspires me throughout, because me, I don't view the world in terms of populism and what is said on the streets right now. I judge every leader that has ever existed in history of mankind with the legacy they left behind, not necessarily with the stands and populism and speeches they did when they were still alive. Every leader should be judged on the legacy they leave behind. And when you're dealing with Mandela, you are dealing with a true sophisticated man, a man who observed reality and dealt with reality in a natural sense. You see, one what shows the wisdom of Mandela. The man was anointed, probably an alien. When you see a man, a true wisdom is when you don't underestimate your enemies, especially your strong enemies. When you have strong opponents, you pay attention to them. What Mandela understood, and not just Mandela actually, but he was a leader of the comrades of his generation nonetheless. And there's a reason why they followed his commands and his leadership. The man was anointed. And the modern South Africa that we all enjoy today is because of that caliber of leadership that was among Black South Africans to have a vision, to see the future, and to understand geopolitics and the systems in place and the power the enemy had. See, and I think that was a knowledge that was acquired for centuries of experiencing a settler's colony, something that the rest of Africa had no idea of. And they made a lot of plunder because they always underestimated the enemy. And we continue to see Africans across the world doing the same stupidity. Even here in South Africa, they come here, they need us, they survive through us, but they still arrogant. Why? Because in their nature, they don't have a long-term vision. They don't understand where their stability comes from. They cut every hand that feeds them. They did the same with the colonizers. And every nation that got independent in Africa kept doing the same things. Comes Black South Africans. Centuries of experience, centuries of observing global dynamics, global events, and understanding how superpowers works, empires. And that's the best gift we have ever been given as Black South Africans. That those leaders who said, you know what, this is gonna be a long battle. That's why the book called The Long Walk to Freedom had nothing to do with what happened, but had everything to do with what we were embarking on. That story is a story for the generation those comrades were leaving behind. They were basically telling us that, look, we have fought up until here. This is phase one. The next thing is going to be a long walk, but that's up to you, the future generations, us. And we need to pay attention and maneuver these things through the teachings of our forefathers who lived before us. They were not reckless people. They didn't live to impress and feed their own egos. They understood that they are responsible for nations here, people who live, millions of Black South Africans dependent on them. They were not going to pull stands and wake up and take radical, extreme decisions that will plunder the whole country to a disaster. They said, in our lifetime, we're not going to see certain things. We're not going to achieve certain changes and certain things. We did well. We stopped the bloodshed in the streets. We stopped the slaves and our people living in bondages. At least now they can go to school and not earn an inferior education. They will be able to at least even start businesses, knowledge, acquire, grow the middle class, grow your confidence, and eventually, given time, then some generation along the line will take the position. Look how we strategically positioned ourselves in geopolitics with BRICS, for example. That's just an example. It shows you that when you give time, when you are patient enough, things happen. And we managed to assert ourselves correctly geopolitically in the world without burning our country. And the stability of South Africa domestically. That was very, very important to keep South Africa stable, alive, and open for business while we position ourselves politically, strategically, globally. Because our forefathers could only give us political power. They understood that economic power and systematic power, it's going to be a long game, but they can leave us with political power, and we can use political power to create stability and position ourselves rightfully globally. Then given time, we will attain economic power. And I think we are a generation that will win an economic power in our lifetime with the changes that we see domestically. I know many people have got their own views in geopolitics who we align ourselves with, but I trust, sometimes I do put trust in our own people, and I say Black South Africans will always make the right decisions when it comes to geopolitics. So our future is really, really bright. And we can only thank that generation of comrades who said, we're not going to burn this country. We're not going to send these people away. We're going to live with them. We're going to observe them. We're going to study them. We want to know their ways. And we're going to keep the lives of Black South Africans going so that one day they can win their country back. And I think we are on the right path, Keys.
Thank you so much, MABOSSO. Guys, anyone else with one last bite before Svan?
Kuningi, and it only gets Kuningi. But host, I just wanted to say, Hore, exactly what MABOSSO is saying, Hore. We must never forget, Hore, it's our character that has sustained us, and it's our character that is the winning factor. Not even amongst our peers, because the reality of it is on the continent we have no peers, because it is that character, it is those leaders that were willing to think about the long-term future of our country, right? Yeah. Somebody, I am hearing an echo, my bad. But it's because of that, and that we stand out, and we have South African exceptionalism today. And we need to maintain that. So even when people say things like Mandela was a sellout, the reality of it is, who are you comparing the ANC government to? You're comparing the government that brought us back into the global economy, made us a global economic force, to a party or a regime that got us sanctioned, that made us isolated from the rest of the world. And we must always remember how poverty in South Africa was manufactured. Because even when you look at history and you look at, because when it comes to war, that's when people become honest. So when you look at the English and the Boers, and they speak about the wars that they fought against our grandfathers and what they gained from those wars, they're always talking about how many heads of cattle they took, right? Meaning, long before any foreigners ever came to our shores, we were already agriculturists. We were already people who had wealth and understood long-term thinking. Because when you look at even the Sesotho calendar, it's based on harvesting. It's based on agriculture. When you look at the fact that within our culture, cows are so important, which means mauzo shata, melupuminkom. If somebody important passes, melupuminkom. Anybody who knows anything about raising cows knows how long-term that type of thinking has to be. And therefore, we are led because we come from a superior culture of people, and we can never ever let that go, or let people who come from inferior cultures where they sold each other out convince us ukuthi thina sifana nabo, because ngeke sifane maphumi kwerekwere kungena umuntu. That is the that is the motto moving forward.
Yeah. Sorry, Raf, and sorry, Justin. I know you wanted to say something, guys. I'm gonna be dropping. Can I just say something last, because I forgot to add when Kaiser was saying, these are important points. Kaiser made an example with Ushaka Zulu. He said he measures the greatness and the tactics of the previous leaders not based on the advanced equipments they had, but based on what they had to work with in order to defeat the enemy. And that was a good point. When you look at the tactics that were deployed by Shaka Zulu against his opponents and his ambitions, he had a global vision. Actually, he was ahead of his time. And this is, if the stories we are told are truth, which I think they are. The man had a very high IQ. It's obvious. He understood wars. He was groomed in a period of battles. Obviously, understood the tactics, and to a point where he invented that weapon of lowering the spear from having a long one to a shorter one. It changed everything, and how tactically he will deploy his legion of soldiers to face the enemy, how he will understand the strength and how to break the enemy, even psychological. The man was ahead of his time, to a point where his tactics were deployed by the next generation after him, that conquered, that fought and won against the aggressors with advanced weapons. So you have to put some respect in that. And that's the success of Black South Africans, the mindset alone. Now, when you look at Africa as a whole, I said the whole Africa was colonized, but South Africa stands exceptional in terms of how we dealt with our problems, how we migrated or transcended from being during apartheid or being colonized to create a stable country that becomes the most developed and the most powerful black country, that every black person is trying to come live in here, but Black South Africans are not trying to go live in any black nation. Now, also one factor that we often forget here is the culture. I always say the culture also is one of the biggest factor into how societies are shaped and the result, the product of what that society becomes tomorrow. I always say you look at there's 4 countries that are the most important in Africa: is Morocco, Egypt, Somalia, and South Africa in terms of the entry to Africa, the choke points of the global economy. But of these 4, the 3 are the most stable and successful just based on geographical advantage. Of course, they are utilizing it to the best ability. And I think Black South Africans have utilized it better than any other region, because South Africa is more powerful, more stable, and more economically stable than Morocco, Egypt as well. But Somalia is a fucked up shithole. Somalia has got the same benefits, same geography as Morocco, Egypt, and South Africa. It must be benefiting the same way Morocco, Egypt, and South Africa is benefiting. And I think at the root of it is organizing society, the culture. When you observe Somalians, they are still very backward, primitive people. They like this jungle justice, the Islamic religion at the extreme of it. A foreign religion that has devastated that society to a point where they cannot organize and shape their political indifferences to take advantage of their geography. That is one of the most important, and it's so obvious that that geography should be making them rich, but they're extremely poor. So sometimes you have to give credit where it's due. South Africa is a success story because of the culture that Black South Africans have, since we are 85% of the population here. We could have banned this country. We could have been fools who become extremists and just ban everything down. Yet we chose the path of organize, have patience, be determined, choose the right leadership. And we continue to do that even under the circumstance we have. We don't think of running away. We don't think of tribalism. When we don't get what we want, we don't behave like Somalians. You know what Somalians do? When they don't get what they want, they take machetes and AK-47 and come guns blazing. That's the culture. You have to look at these societies and say, you know what? Apart from the fact that we were all colonized, apart from the fact that we still have got external influences, because everybody can make that excuse, there's a problem in societies that don't function just due to the nature of the culture they have. Look at the Shona people in Zimbabwe. They behave like nobody in the SADC region. Botswana has got white people. South Africa has got white people. Namibia has got white people. Why didn't they chase white people away? Why did the Shona people in Zimbabwe decide to behave in a very questionable way, where they did what the reckless moves they did without a succession plan? That's the typical mindset across many African countries. Now, who do you blame for that? Do you continue to cry and blame countries that sanctioned them, which was obvious they're going to sanction them after that reckless decision? Or you say, wait a minute, what is the culture of these people? How do they make decisions collectively? What is the end game? And you have to agree that sometimes the cultures, when you take a particular culture and generalize and put the collective people there, then you see the results that you're going to see. I'll give you another example. Here in South Africa, we've got many kinds of migrants. But due to the nature of cultures that have shaped certain societies, certain people stand out, like Zimbabweans, Nigerians, Somalians. You start to see the pattern once you start to dive deep and observe the cultures, then you have to agree that even the leadership they have in those countries is a byproduct of the same culture when you observe the behavior of this particular people. Now, let me say this well in my closing. At some point, South Africa was run by a white man. And when a white man ran this country, to show you that even a white man is pathetic in this country, the idea that South Africa is what it is because of white men is pathetic. When the white man ran this country during apartheid, we were almost sanctioned by everyone. Even Iran stopped giving us oil because the stupid white man in power was running this society like a primitive animal that doesn't understand sophisticated modern societies. It was up until the black man took over this country that it's still not perfect, but it's definitely better than when the white man ran this country, to a point where nobody even wanted to come here. Not white people, not even poor Africans. Nobody wanted to come here when the whitey Dutch Boer men who are used to farming only and doing construction, you give him a government, he ran this government like a subhuman who is not even evolved, creating segregations and operating a society at 10%. When you only create a system that benefits 10% of the population, you are basically unleashing only 10% of that society. How can that society transform? Our GDP at the highest when the white man ran this country for more than 45 years, it only grew, I think, 110 billion or 84 billion US dollars. Black men took over in 1994, formally. By 2011, when Thabo Mbeki left, South African GDP was already 400 billion US dollars. It grew more than 200%. We broke records in history. South African economy transformed faster than when you even put apartheid and colonialism period together. But the pathetic black people from fucked up countries who are not better than black South Africans will always give credit to white men because they resent the success of black South Africans because we shame them. The success of black South Africans doesn't give them excuses because they cannot make excuse about colonization and the white men because how did black South Africans succeed? So we shame them, and this is the reason why they will always give credit to the white men, even when the same black people didn't want to come to South Africa when the white man was the president. They knew that South Africa was a burning hell under the white man, and they didn't bring their asses here, but they waited until it was black men when our economy was prospering, and you started to see them here. So I'll pack it there, guys, and yeah, thanks, Azania, for this life, man. It was very important, and yeah,
my boss.
I appreciate all of you guys.
MABOSSO, thank you so much, bro. And also, guys, my battery is going flat at the moment. So
Can I just give my last 1 minute submission?
I'll give you. I'll timer you 1 minute. AJ, go ahead, bro.
I'll make it two. Make it two.
Okay,
Yeah. No.
two.
Thanks, MABOSSO. I think we need that. I think as patriots, we need to be radical and not only about fighting and insult, but with facts. We need to be very aggressive in our engagement with facts. We really need to put our country out there. People need to know. And I just wanted to say this. I know we're closing about the issue because I see a lot of black people are worried about Cape Independent. Guys, you know, in our constitution, it doesn't allow secession, meaning that Cape Town by no other ways it can be exited rather than the national referendum. That is in the constitution. So, I mean, do the maths. Even if Cape Town is full of white people, if we have to do national referendum, I mean, we are the majority, so we're not going to allow that. So it will never happen. That is why you see the government is not even worried about that. They don't want to address it. It's just like the Igbo king in the East London. It's just making roads. I don't think that we really need to even worry about that. But their time is coming whereby we have to dudula those whiteys abahambe. We deal with these blacky ones, and they should be next on that. But rather than that, thanks, guys. It was very informative, and we're learning a lot. And we hope that the next one will be even better than this one. Thanks, Azania. Thanks, everyone.
So,
Sure.
Razan,
So now-
just to remind us
go ahead.
of our character. I don't know who of you were here before 94, but we had like songs like Boma Athula Sizwe Ungabokhala uJehova wakho uzokunqobela, and that speaks to our character, Hore. Even faced with the last capital of white supremacy, never at no point did we ever abandon botho ba rona, ubuntu bethu. And that's why we are the face of liberation for all people across the globe. And I have never been more proud to be South African. And I pray that I can share this feeling not only with my children, but with my great grandchildren. And I leave it at that. Amen.
Dangora, anyone else wants to have a bite quickly?
From my end, I was just going to say that I think this is something we can take away to say, you know what, we can do more without any political interferences. So we should think about that. Thank you, host.
Bulldog, thank you, Zozo.
Thanks for hosting this host. MABOSSO just blew our minds. But I'm just reiterating, I wish he can put this down on paper somehow. Man, you can just take the clip here today and punch it into AI to do some sort of I don't know, a little booklet for South Africans, for Black South Africans, and also, for these shitholes north of us, to educate them, and maybe it'll evolve them past the primitive stage, especially the Zimbos. Maybe it will get them to think like humans, think like South Africans. Yeah, no, but thanks for hosting this. I really emphasize King. Please pressure him to do some sort of a presentation, a written presentation. I'd really appreciate it. Even if you sold it, some of us are willing to pay for such. So thanks a
No
lot.
problem. No problem. Thank you so much. I don't know about this one who's just arriving now as I'm closing. I have a soft spot for Zach, guys. I don't know why. I have a soft spot for this guy. Just Kings, go ahead, bro.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Yeah. So what I'll say is that hey, this is such a great topic. It can go on and on and on. I think we should have more and more of these morale boosting topics that boost up the morale of, because we always hear so many bad things about ourselves as South Africans, and we're always defending ourselves. So it's great to hear about ourselves in a very positive light. And what my boss was talking about just now, what I'll say is that Mandela was way ahead of his time, you know. Some of my favorite quotes by him is when he says, "It is through song and dance that I am at peace with my soul." Another one is when he talked about using sports to unite a country. I feel like those are some of the overlooked ideas that Nelson Mandela has brought through. And those things have proven that they really do create a certain culture in a country that creates sophistication, that creates a certain way of viewing oneself as a sophisticated people that are able to be sophisticated in the way of doing things, rather than being this WAR type of people that you find there in Africa that are just obsessed with jihadism and all those type of things. No, you are able to just be about the whole entire thing, and to be a sophisticated human being who understands how the whole world works, and who is inspired by more than just whatever it is that you are seeing next to you. You are able to look at the whole entire world and find inspiration. So definitely great things that were said there. And yeah, can't wait for the next one. This podium, I'll repeat again, Asani, brilliant, brilliant. I think we're going to hear some very incredible things. I can't wait to hear from people like Seula. Yeah, I think this is a perfect platform, since I've heard some of the things he said.
Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much, Just Kings. Za, we are closing. You've got 2 minutes.
Oh man, I won't use all of it.
Everyone says that when they're going to use all of it. Go ahead.
I just for protecting me when I drowsily. Oh, look, man. I just got here. I just connected to the Wi-Fi, and I saw you said 200K likes and you'll close, but I see you're cutting it short. In any case, yeah, man. I've been missing a lot of the podiums. I've been hearing just about it, and it sounds like it's a great thing. So yeah, hopefully weekend I'll catch it. It's a great idea. Love it so much. You know, I mean, people love it. I don't know why I requested. But yeah, Zania,
I don't know either, to be honest.
I haven't climbed your panel in a long time, bro. And I
I
got last
know.
time I climbed this panel, I got like 20 followers. And yeah, man, I haven't been putting my account in the box here. And yeah,
Yes,
I
is
just want to put it.
I also always feel bad because every time you open, I'm either in bed, I'm with someone, or I'm driving somewhere,
No,
and
yes,
it's always like a reason.
recently my schedule has been quite disturbed because of the shift I'm taking. But in any
Yeah.
case, yeah, man, we'll see tomorrow and how things go. But who was on the podium today? Was it Mabosso?
Um, uh, this afternoon we had a Jolofina, two Jolofinas, and then this evening with Maboso. But that's it. Tomorrow we have got a debate for Van Persie and Nati. Kanakana will be hosting that one. Kanakana is having technical issues at the moment. If it's not Kanakanda hosting it, I'm gonna try for the one.
No, 100%.
And
I'll
then
be
on
there. I'll
Sunday,
be
we've got
there.
a debate of Ufama's daughter and a mystery guest. And then next week, I'm going to try my best Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the podium with Vote Right, Uvosi, and somebody else that I
No,
can't
I
remember.
definitely will be here, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I've got to say. I said a lot of nothing within my 2 minutes, but in any case, thank you so much, man.
It's okay. You're welcome, bro. Guys, thank you so much. We've worked really hard today. We pushed two podiums in one day. I'm tired, but yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming and supporting. I really appreciate it, Buffett, my patriots. And I'm so sorry for this afternoon. I know I held you guys at bay. You wanted to let loose, but um, yeah, niyaunderstand uba kutheni nenzela into endiyenzileyo. So ndizanixolela abantwana basekhaya. But yeah, kuzoba njalo until. Please cross your fingers and your toes and pray to Jesus Christ, Muhammad, or Allah, Buddha, whichever ones you serve, that a so-called South Gerian comes up. I have to Hamilton, bruh, unless I don't have any other choice, because the whole point that I'm doing this thing is for people to come back. I don't want it to be so hostile that bam, yeah, bo. People can ask questions, ask them tough questions, guys. Sorry, just one last thing before Nvalene is that whenever I invite people to come to the bullpen or the podium, I actually make assurances. I give them assurances to say, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, you know. And I have to keep to those promises. I have to. I ask yes, my faith, like I have to, you know. So otherwise, the people are just not going to come. And if people don't come, then the platform is not going to be functional. So on a podium by myself, you know what I mean? So I give people assurances. I tell them you are going to be asked tough questions, but no one is going to swear at you and no one's going to do this. And that's why I ask you guys to hold back. It's hard for me as well because now I'm like I've got my own views and I'm like, yeah, but why would you say something like this? But yeah, I think we've had all of these combative conversations with a lot of people, combative. But now let's have a moment where we have a conversation of understanding. Yeah, bo, a conversation of understanding. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, guys. Nsanibona ngomso ke kwagandaganda for Van Persie versus Nat on xenophobia. Please go there and support Van Persie, guys, because Unati will go with Amakwecha and it's gonna be that. So please go and support Van Persie. Ganda has agreed to open. Everything is still well. His technical difficulty should be sorted out. by tomorrow. If not Ganda, I'll communicate on via my stories as to what's happening. But Ngoska Kulu guys, shelele.